Republicans have won the redistricting war quite decisively, but not without some hangups. Lots of court action going on throughout the country. The Democrats are not going down without a fight. So we're going to get into all of that. There's quite a few stories on the redistricting front. I'm sure you guys are all sick and tired of hearing about it, but this is potentially, we're talking about decades of Republican dominance in this country, despite the demographics not quite going their way. So we're going to get into all of that, a lot of big stories on that front. We also have ICE cracking down big time on one of the most egregious visa scamming mills I think we've ever seen in this country. Absolutely unbelievable stuff going on, specifically around student visas. You might think that that's innocent. We're just talking about, some people just trying to get their caps and gowns. Mm-hmm. Far more nefarious things going on in the student visa universe, and ICE is cracking down hard. We have a California mayor going down with CCP ties. I think that's to be expected. I don't know if you've kept tabs. I don't know if you're really much of a politico, but the happenings in California aren't exactly the most pro-American, at least not thus far. And a mayor has gone down with CCP ties. Quite interesting stuff happening. We're going to get into that. We have a few other stories we'll get to throughout the show. But with that, we are very pleased to have you guys with us. And I believe we have a few advertisers that we need to give a shout out to before we start the show, but we'll get that going in some time. Before we do, obviously, I want to give a shout out to the Discord, everyone hanging out in the Discord. Very happy to have some fantastic Timcast members. You can head over to timcast.com, check out our Discord to get involved in the action. Some very exciting stuff. So if you haven't clicked away yet because there's no Tim, head on over to Discord, go hang out in there first, and then come back and hang out in the show. It's going to be a very beautiful thing. But yes, Tim, he's out today, unfortunately a little under the weather, so I'm holding it down for you guys because, as you may know, Phil is on tour. He's on a nationwide tour embarking. I don't know where he is right now. Does anyone know what city Phil's in right now? It's kind of like the Santa tracker, We need like the Phil tracker. Where is Phil?
Where's that man?
His beard.
Yeah, he's somewhere. I think he's on the East Coast still. So he's still in our hearts and in our minds. But with that, we're going to get today's show. We have a fantastic guest today. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, could you give the people a quick intro of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Mark Herman. I am the former director for Candace Owens, even more former director for Daily Wire, currently the host of the new podcast, Marksplained, where I mansplain things, but I'm Mark.
Let's go, man. Yeah. Mark's like a mansplain. I see what you did there. That's really clever stuff. I love it. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We got Chris hanging out.
What's going on, man? Happy to be back.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
I think it's our first time on any sort of Timcast show.
Indeed it is.
Had a lot of discussions in the room over there, so excited to get into everything.
Awesome.
I love the Tate takeover.
Yeah.
Because he is, Tate Brown's always holding it down. So I appreciate that, and I look forward to Mark hanging out with you.
Especially tonight, he is holding it down.
Sure, there's a bit of a coup happened, actually. It's more of like a Wagner style.
Tim is healthy. It's just that.
Yeah. If the chat gets rowdy enough, we will present proof of life, but I don't think we're there yet. So we got Ian hanging out.
I'm going to derail this at every chance I can. Please. I'm just kidding. I promise you, I'm just kidding.
I love it.
Hi, Tate.
How's it going? And we
good, man.
Order Banks hanging out, too.
What up? I'm hanging out. Thank you all for joining me. And I'm excited to get into this.
Yeah, we got a fantastic panel, some rock stars on the panel tonight. So let's get into this first story. I'm sure you guys are sick and tired of hearing about it. But again, like I said, absolutely vital stuff. This is really important stuff to pay attention to. First is, I got to say, it looks like the Republicans have decisively won the redistricting battle. Now, as soon as we sort of kicked that bee's nest, I was pretty skeptical this was going to go a positive direction because, as we know, the Republican is the party of managing decline, and then the Democrats are the party of just declining. Yep. So I wasn't too hopeful when we sort of kicked off this entire redistricting saga. And as time went on, I felt vindicated. I saw, Indiana, various other states across the country, the GOP sat on their hands. They came up with the reasons for why we shouldn't or can't redistrict. It was really some pathetic stuff. We saw the Virginia redistricting race where the Republicans put pennies behind that race and the Democrats put a war chest behind the redistricting battle. It was really blackpilling for a while. I was not too thrilled with the direction that things were going, but fates have turned around. We got a decisive decision, obviously from the Supreme Court, gutting the Voting Rights Act, which sounds kosher on its face, right? Oh yeah, we want voters to have rights. Well, obviously it was utilized by the Democrats for quite nefarious purposes, basically consolidating as much power that they were not entitled to as possible. So first thing that dropped, obviously we had some news here. Missouri Supreme Court upholds legislators' midterm congressional redistricting map. So this is a good white pill here. This is good news, obviously, is that the Supreme Court, as we've seen in Virginia at the state's level, can intervene, if they feel that things are not quite passing the sniff test. Well, Missouri, we're in the clear. This is where people were a little more concerned, obviously, and this is what we have in the title. And this is a bit concerning. Obviously, if this were happening while we were underwater in the redistricting battle, people would have been quite outraged. But I think everyone's taking a victory lap right now, so it doesn't seem to be discussed as much. This is concerning stuff from Yahoo News. South Carolina Republicans tank redistricting. For now, that is the key contingent here. The South Carolina Senate just made it harder for the state to withdraw its congressional map, resisting pressure from President Donald Trump. Lawmakers on Tuesday failed to reach the 2/3 majority needed to approve a measure that would have allowed them to take up a vote on redistricting even after the legislative session ends later this week. And then this is the sort of egregious thing, but this is what we're kind of used to. 5 Republicans hopped across the aisle, joined all Democrats in voting against the proposal. Henry McMaster, the governor of South Carolina, could still call a special session though his office so far has dismissed this idea. So we have good news, bad news, and then here is an example of something in a blue state where it appears that, again, conservatives are going on offense, which is unbelievable that I'm even saying that. I never thought that would happen. From Democracy Docket, really a reputable source here. Right-wing group sues Illinois and first posts Calais attack on the State Voting Rights Act. Of course, Illinois is probably one of the most egregious gerrymanders in this country. It looks like you spilled a bowl of spaghetti. But yes, the Republicans, by extension, the conservative movement, going on offense here. Finally, we have, this was from Sean Davis. He has the copy here. Notice has been given to all Democrats in the Tennessee House that all members of the Democrat caucus are being removed from all standing committees and subcommittees as a result of their behavior in the state house during the redistricting debates last week, which included setting fires inside of the Capitol and attacking law enforcement. In the state of Tennessee, political terrorism will not be tolerated. National Republicans, take note that this is how you exercise power. So guys, how are we feeling about this redistricting battle? Do you think we're in the clear yet? What do you think the future is looking like for the political composition of this country?
I think it's just going to get crazier and crazier. But as a Tennessee resident myself, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that they're actually holding people to account, because there's been issues in the past with members of the state house acting up. I want to say them like Justin Jenkins or something close to that. They were protesting on the floor and all. I'm sorry. And it's good to see them actually hold people to account, but I don't know what's their main issue with the redistricting, because they were fine. Democrats were fine when that happened in California. If you look at California, it's just solid blue.
Yeah.
So they're against it when it works against them, or
yeah,
Of course. Of course. If Democrats, if they are winning, then they love it. If they lose the Supreme Court ruling, which would take, I wouldn't say they gutted the ruling Voting Rights Act. They didn't gut it. They just upheld the law by the Constitution.
Sure, yeah.
So when Democrats can't break the law or do what they want to do illegally or kind of twist things up, they get upset when actually the real law is held to the ground and what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think it would be. I agree, because actually what they did was they kept all the bones of the VRA intact. I think gutting, that language I use, is specifically regarding the current Democrat interpretation of the VRA, which is effectively just. Look, I'll just cut the chase here. It's effectively a black supremacist interpretation where they're just saying, no, we're entitled to districts because of our race. It is absolutely absurd, and the Supreme Court obviously came down on the right side of that decision. Regarding, Tennessee, I mean, I'm a Tennessee native. I don't know if how many people in the audience can relate to that, and I'm from Memphis. So this is something that I'm quite familiar with. And Justin Pearson, you brought him up. I mean, this is this guy who literally, if you look at videos like 10 years ago, he was like a just basic normie, like theater kid in his his university. And he was like, hello, I'm Justin Pearson, and I'm looking to work across the aisle, and I'm looking for bipartisanship connection. Flash forward 10 years, he's doing this like basically minstrel show on the floor of the Tennessee Congress. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's got his big afro that he's like, and then he's like LARPing like he's like a reverend. I mean, it is really egregious, unbelievable stuff. And to your point, or to the point of both of you guys, I mean, of course the Democrats here feel especially threatened because, again, they're losing a beachhead in what is becoming the center of the United States, which is the South. And the reason that's important, the reason why they're specifically so concerned about what's happening in these southern states is because, again, if you look at what the next census is going to look like, again, the way that the direction of the country is going, the South is going to be dominating the political spectrum. I mean, they're going to be dominating the presidential elections. That's where a lot of these electoral votes are heading towards in the next census. And so the Democrats understand that if, again, the entire South becomes ruby red, they're in serious trouble for the next few decades as far as winning goes. I mean, they're in serious trouble.
Kind of aligns with all these people leaving the Democratic Party over the last 8 years since the mask came off of the machine. And I think you're just kind of seeing a sorting realignment throughout the electorate now. It is. I mean, like you were saying, Mark, it looks like escalation. Like I just mean escalation towards more of it. And like, I've been like, okay, the United States is transitioning to a technocracy, a global technocracy led by American military, economic force, whatever. This is like the most stark indication of that. This is such a transition of American governance. I've never seen anything like it in my life. The way that the electorate's going to change in 6 months is so drastic. But I mean, I think we need drastic change.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting is, this was the fear for the longest time with various Republican strategists, is just because of the nature of the changing demographics of the United States, it was thought that the Republicans would be increasingly politically unviable because, again, we've seen the non-white percentage of the country grow, exponentially over the last 60 to 70 years. What is the primary voting group that will turn out the ballot, and check an R on the ballot? It is white voters. So, again, as white voters, their share of the electorate shrunk, that was kind of the common thinking, is that the Republican Party would shrink along with it. So that's what makes this so dramatic, is we've seen two things happening. One, in the last presidential election, we're seeing the Democrats lose their monopoly on non-white voters. We saw especially Hispanics surge in support for the Republican Party, and there's a lot of reasons for that we could get into if we want.
I think it was primarily Trump's Cinco de Mayo tweet 10 years ago. Very on brand. His Mexican food had a wall around it and everything.
Absolutely. And, something that we can get into, and I don't know if this is a little too controversial for anyone to discuss, but I think it's true, is there's this idea that, with the Obama Rainbow Coalition, that all non-white voters were this one giant monolith. But I think we learned during 2020 that maybe Hispanic Americans and Black Americans don't quite see eye to eye on everything. I think that's fair to say. And we've seen Hispanic voters react at 2020. Again, the Democrats sort of, their entire culture that they have kind of developed was very Black-centric. And I think Hispanic voters did react to that. I think that's fair to say. And again, Trump was just presenting a non-racial, pro-American policy. And they said, well, that's why we came to this country in the first place, because we wanted to participate in America, not a specific ethnic grievance-based, culture or zeitgeist. They just want to be in America. And so, again, I think that's why Trump was able to resonate with them and, again, kind of break up that Democrat power block. And then the second part of that initial point that I was making is, again, just the shifts that we're seeing and redistricting and these sorts of things. Again, it's shifting the ball back to the Republicans' court.
I thought the immigration, mass immigration, 20 million people pissed off so many, and just not even like Black people or Mexican people or whatever, Southerners, like people that, like minorities that were then displaced by immigrants, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I agree with you. I've seen the Black vote for Trump was like, and I'm not much of a monolithic, regarder either, but it was notable. It was notable.
Yeah, real Americans, they care. People who consider themselves Americans care about these illegals coming and jumping in front of the lines. Real immigrants. Legal immigrants are real pissed too, because they had to go through, spend all this money, do all this paperwork, and all these people get to jump through the front of the line, and they get their hotels and houses, Section 8, whatever else they get paid, welfare checks, and just regular everyday Americans are not liking this illegal bull-ish.
Yeah, and I think the general perception of how immigrants will view America and view the Republican Party will change in this Trump 2 paradigm, because again, it's much tougher to immigrate to this country now under President Trump's in his second term. And so the people that come here, you're basically guaranteeing that these people want to be here. Where I think maybe since in the post-Hart-Celler America, the majority, maybe not the majority, I think it's fair to say the majority of immigrants that were coming here were coming here because of potential economic prosperity, right? There was a huge departure in the way that immigrants decided to come to America, where before Hart-Celler, it was more of a lifestyle adjustment. They were seeking freedom. They were seeking liberty. They wanted to buy into the American project. Post-Hart-Celler, a lot of the immigrants that were coming here, I would argue the majority of immigrants that were coming here primarily for economic prosperity, which again, can you blame them? No. Not really. But the problem is we're not running a charity here, we're running a country.
What is Hart-Celler?
Hart-Celler was the 1965 Immigration Act, which basically changed the entirety of how we conducted immigration. So prior to the Hart-Celler Act, credence was given to immigrants from countries that would be perceived to be more culturally assimilable into the United States.
Wow.
Post-Hart-Celler Act, it basically removed any pretense, gave the Americans zero discretion over who should come from where, and effectively viewed the entire global population as a blank slate that could be rewritten with American values, which I would argue has failed quite extensively.
And it makes zero sense. It makes zero sense. Sorry, yeah. You can't take someone who is nothing like American. I don't want to. Certain countries say, okay, you live in say a South Asian nation, and they're used to throwing your trash out on the street every day.
Yeah,
and that's just how you get rid of it. you can't come to America and think that's going to be culturally relevant, or you can't assimilate. That's heart seller. We need to be before heart seller.
You could like if you have a different culture and a different religion, that's a hard seller right there. If we're talking about selling, like, but
Hard seller.
if you have a Christian that's like an Indian Christian or a Pakistani Christian, that's a lot easier. Or like an American Muslim, that's a lot easier. But
it's a little tricky because I'll push back a little bit because I do think a British atheist like a Carl Benjamin is going to assimilate much easier into the United States than a Christian Haitian. Haiti is majority Christian, and they've had a very difficult time assimilating in the United States. Because I'm saying this as a Christian, as someone that is chauvinistically Christian, I will acknowledge that there has to be a little bit more to their ability to assimilate into the United States than just sharing a vague Christian worldview.
You think, would you consider like British people and American people of the same culture?
Broadly, yeah, I would say that Oren McIntyre made this point on Tucker Carlson's show, actually, where he was sort of walking through, he was doing a retrospective on sort of the founding of America, what was a certain spirit around the foundation of the United States. And he argued, and I think this is correct, that again, fundamentally the American identity at the time of the founding was sort of an Anglo-Protestant identity, as in these were the descendants from the Puritans, these were the descendants from the Cavaliers that settled the South, even the Scots-Irish were kind of bought in on this idea. And so he was basically making the contention that if you're not in that group, that doesn't mean you have zero stake in the country or you're not an American or anything. That's ridiculous. What he was saying was the closer you get to that identity, the closer you are to sort of that core American understanding of sort of what it means to be an American that you would sort of see from the founders. I mean, the overwhelming majority of the founders were, again, of British stock. Again, they were Protestants. Again, this isn't to say you can't be. I don't think anyone's making that contention. It's just saying if the people are coming to this country, what are they going to assimilate to? Well, that identity looks a lot like that Anglo-Protestant identity, even if you're not an Anglo, even if you're not a Protestant.
Fair enough, but that's still kind of shocking to me because I've always thought that like the British and the Americans are like different species, not even the same culture.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like it's a different culture, but it's a similar culture. I guess if
It's
you
a perverse culture.
Who would you argue would be more similar culturally to Americans than the British or Canadians?
The Irish, but maybe I'm predisposed to having that perspective.
It could be. Yeah. I think the Irish, we're really getting in the weeds here. I think there's kind of a broader, like maybe Anglosphere sort of common identity where I think Australians, Canadians, Irish, British, I think these people can all come here and it doesn't feel too exotic to them. I think that would be kind of the key word used is exotic. I mean, I'll say I have people I know quite well from all of these countries and they come to the United States and they say, yeah, it's fairly familiar. We have a lot of the same customs, a lot of the same understandings, a lot of the same presuppositions, where if someone comes from Somalia, for example, or even to get closer, if someone came from Albania, even though that's European, because this is not a like white, I'm not saying this is an exclusionary white thing. I'm saying it's a very specific culture, very specific nationality. American is a nation. And there's a lot of white groups that would have quite a lot of difficulty assimilating into American life. Again, Albanians come to mind, Russians, there's various groups.
Czechs.
Yeah, even Czechs.
But what is even British culture now? Just you've seen so much over the last decade or so of mass immigration. I've been to England a couple of times, and it's just unrecognizable. It's
Yeah.
I hear a lot of that anecdotally from a lot of people that travel the world, and they see that in a lot of places.
Well, I think that's the tragic thing across the West is, again, I'm making all these presuppositions if we're talking about these countries, but again, these countries have fundamentally changed, even the United States, where, again, what would be the Japanese understanding of an American? It'd be like, I'm James Johnson, and I'm a former Marine, and that's like what's in their video games. But if you look at like Dallas now, I mean, Dallas looks like a literal UN refugee camp. I mean, it is unbelievable what's going on there. Same thing's happening in Toronto. Same thing's happening in Birmingham in the UK. Same thing's happening in Melbourne, Australia. Like these countries, and it's happening all across the West, are just increasingly becoming unfamiliar. I think that's very fair to say. And again, I'm not making it the contention that anyone is better or worse. I'm just saying that diversity on the global scale is actually quite a beautiful thing. You know, the fact that Bangladesh is Bengali or the fact that Nigeria is Nigerian, that's a very beautiful thing. The idea that a lot of these people are proposing that, you know, the entire world should just turn into one giant group, like one giant homogenous group that has no identifiable features, I find quite tragic. And again, this is saying on a global scale, I think it would be tragic if Eritrea ceased to be Eritrean.
If you could snap your fingers and everyone on Earth knew English, would you?
No, I think that would be pretty sad.
That'd be a Tower of Babel scenario, basically. So you don't want that to happen. Yeah.
Precisely.
Well, in Dungeons and Dragons, like there's a language called Common, and everyone knows Common, and then there's like Elvish and Dwarvish and all these things, but humans only speak Common. I think it's a take on on American English, and like how Americans only speak it common, they only speak English. But I personally, my thoughts in 2006 when I started doing this was if we can create a world language, and I like your Tower of Babel reference, but if we had a world language that it'll be a lot easier to do this, to win this culture war. Like once you get someone to speak your language, you've basically won them.
Do you think that creates peace? Because I mean, look at the United States. Everyone here speaks English, and there's quite a bit of division and difficulty getting along.
I wouldn't say everyone. Sorry.
Yeah.
At scale, it's tough. It's funny because like I never really had a problem with multiculturalism in theory until I started experiencing like multiculturalism in my neighborhood, in my state, the places where I live, and also seeing how it's impacted all these other countries to the point where you've diluted what made these some of these countries historic.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason Vermont votes like dictatorial numbers for the Democrat Party because they're not exposed to the ramifications of Democrat policy.
Well, Vermont's actually a pretty safe place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like, what you would expect from a Democrat rule in California or New York, Vermont is still a very homogenous place. So the reality is in very homogenous countries and very homogenous communities, they can try a variety of different policy cocktails. In the actual day-to-day life, the social compact, it would be very difficult to disrupt that.
I wonder, like, Chris, what you're saying, like, what's the craziest cultural thing you've experienced personally? I'm open. If any of you guys have, like, a thing that jumps out, like, I want to hear it. But
I'll have to think about the most appropriate one for YouTube, and maybe I'll save the more inappropriate one that came immediately to mind to the after show.
Oh,
So if
interesting.
anybody else wants to weigh in.
I lived in L.A. in 2007, 8, 9, and I was in, like, East LA, Melrose Hill, and it was every Sunday. It gets Mexicans, hell, and it was I dug it, and then my buddy invited me over for collard greens, and I'm like hanging out at his house. I loved it, but I had a good family. I wasn't getting like adopted into their culture. I just liked being like the white guy at the party. I hang out with all Mexican dudes or South American, Central American dudes that spoke no English, and I would just think words at them while they would be speaking in Spanish, and I could like feel their vibe, and they would laugh and they loved me. Well, but I don't think most people are like that.
No, and I think that tees into our next story quite well, actually, on the, what led to this? Well, it was mass immigration. This was kind of disrupted a lot of these things we're talking about. This is from the Post-Millennial. ICE identifies more than 10,000 potential fraud cases nationwide related to foreign student job program. Unbelievable what's going on in this country. Thankfully, the Trump administration is on the case. They are they're jumping on this. They're proactive. Again, ICE has found over 10,000 potential fraud cases involving a program that permits foreign students to prolong their stay in the United States after graduating from college by claiming work employment. The federal investigation into the OPT, that's the Optional Practice Training Program, revealed that thousands of foreign students have been claiming to work at businesses with fraud indicators, many of which are non-governmental organizations engaged in, quote, suspicious activity, said ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons during a press conference on Tuesday. OPT permits foreign nationals to work in the United States for 12 or in certain situations 24 months after entering the country on a student visa. Additionally, the program enables students to switch to an employer-sponsored H-1B visa, according to the DHS website. Quote, our nation will not tolerate security threats originating from the foreign student programs. Today, we are announcing that we have identified over 10,000 foreign students who claim to be working for highly suspect employers. That was the ICE director. It was Todd Lyons making that statement. Again, what we're looking into here, what we're seeing is, as they said, the OPT, this basically allows these, people who came here on student visas to find work and employment in the United States afterwards, which in theory is like, yeah, that makes total sense. But the problem is it's being exploited. What's happening here is they're setting up fake job mills in order to extend that visa, which is, as I understand it, was a fairly simple process. You basically just go and say, yeah, I got employed. I should stay here for an extra 12 months. State Department says, yep, checks out. Here you go. You're here for another 12 months or in certain cases, 2 years. And ICE has identified that this has been a loophole that's being exploited, and they're cracking down hard here.
Were they NGOs that are doing these job mill things that you're talking about?
Yeah. So again, as what we're seeing here is, again, it looks like NGOs, they were involved. A lot of these employers were set up by immigrant communities themselves, and then in some cases NGOs. And this was effectively their way of keeping these students in the country because they would not have been able to find employment otherwise. So it's fraud. I mean, case in point, and ICE here is obviously cracking down hard.
It's the same as Minnesota fraud. It's the same as the California fraud. It's the same as all the fraud that we've been seeing lately. People are mad at Trump and the administration for some things, but this is a big deal. Like, they're doing empty buildings, private homes listed as for hundreds of students, but no one's there.
Yep.
Multiple employers using the same address without valid licenses. It's the same scenario of fraud that they've been doing, just on a different scale.
Yeah. We've seen this. I mean, Canada is a great example, actually, of what happens when, again, these programs make a lot of sense. I mean, again, if everything was functioning as normally, these programs make a lot of sense. For example, in Canada, if you are a good student and then you come to Canada to study, it makes sense that you would be granted a visa so you can study in Canada. Yeah, checks out. That makes total sense. But what was happening was, again, immigrant communities, NGOs were involved, but this was primarily immigrant communities, specifically India. They would set up technical colleges, and if you looked up the address of the technical college, they would say, well, we're purely online, so we don't need a campus. Okay, you look up the address, and it's a mailbox, and they're granting like 30,000 student visas. Because again, it was a system that when set up, and in past decades, worked fine. I mean, it never would have occurred to someone to commit fraud at this level. But again, as the world changes, again, as the composition of a lot of these countries changes, we're facing new problems. And so Canada had this problem, and now it looks like in the United States, we had a similar issue where, again, where we've cracked down that a little more. It's more difficult for just, colleges you've never heard of to, grant student visas. But the post-school employment loophole is now being clamped down on by ICE.
A lot of the beneficiaries are managed by employees based in India. I mean, of course. So they're violating the work and training requirements. So a lot of these companies are saying we're hiring these people and they're bringing them in here, even though it's a wrong address. They have tax liens, they have red flags as civil lawsuits against them. They're using these to say that they can stay in the United States when they should not be staying in the United States.
Well, Canada has a solution for having too many people. They just tell them to kill themselves, essentially, through a doctor. So America's not there yet.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
I mean, that's kind of extreme. But
It's like, just kill yourself. Sorry.
Yeah, because Canada, it's a computer spitting out a calculation. So Canada has universal health care. And again, if they determine that this person is going to be like a net drain on the taxpayer, if they were to be treated, that would be the recommendation that would be given to the person. So people are literally being prescribed suicide by the state because of a math formulation. I mean, it is absolutely barbaric what is happening all across the West. The United States is a bit insulated because obviously state power, believe it or not, isn't quite as encompassing in the United States as it is elsewhere. And it's pretty bad here. But to your point, I mean, Canada, dystopian. I mean, the fact that like, a doctor will tell you, yeah, you should probably kill yourself because my computer told me so.
Yeah, free speech, dude. I was just thinking about Brett Weinstein, who was on the show last night. Like during COVID, the way that the Americans kind of at least provided some resistance to that whole lockdown world scenario was.
And a lot of Canadians too, the truckers in particular.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, they stood up.
And then what? I don't know if it's the monarch. You know how I feel about monarchy, Chris. But then they just their government just took their bank accounts away. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And the people that donated to the truckers, they messed their bank accounts up too.
See, the beautiful thing about America is our freedom. The government will not do that, but private corporations will. They'll just do that for you. They'll debank you. They'll cancel you if you have some sort of wrong thing.
Yeah.
Sarcastically, the beautiful thing about America.
Well, when we saw the shot across the bow, I don't know if you guys remember when Beto O'Rourke was running for Senate in Texas. I think it was in 2018 against Ted Cruz. And at the time, there was a lot of fervor over like mass shootings and these sorts of things. And so they asked him, they said, well, okay, as governor of Texas, you can't just take people's guns because there's, a Republican state legislator that would stop that from happening. So how do you plan on, as governor, again, clamping down on like assault weapons, for example? That was like the specific question. And he said, what I would do as governor is I would instruct private companies like Chase. I think he cited Chase, specifically from. They would basically not allow private customers to execute a bank transaction with a seller to acquire an assault weapon. Like he was specifically talking an AR-15. So in short, what he was saying was, I would instruct Chase to not allow you to do business with a gun shop. And I think that's kind of the workaround in the United States because, again, we don't necessarily have an all-encompassing, government. But again, government, and you'll like this, Ian, government collaboration with the private sector can actually create far more worse oppression than just straight-up state intervention in this instance where who are you supposed to appeal to? There is no private sector to bail you out anymore if you're like a consumer trying to get a transaction done because the private sector's, cozied up with the federal government or state government in this instance. I mean, thankfully, he lost.
Is that the same debate where he said, hell yeah, we're coming for your guns?
Yes, it is. I remember because I was watching it on a stationary bike. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go buy my first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Top 10 all-time political moments. Hell yeah, we're coming for your guns.
He
That was
probably
fantastic.
was like almost working for them in that
You could hear
regard.
You could hear the whistle from his poll number dropping.
And then he went and campaigned in California for some reason.
Did he disappear for good? Or is he still trying to make it out there in Texas?
He was writing like I don't know if he had a column or a Substack or something,
my
but he was talking
God.
about after he lost, he like went to the New Mexican desert to find himself, and he was like, I was eating dirt to connect with the people there. I'm like, what are you, a pregnant woman? What do you mean you're eating what?
That's code for I was eating peyote. That's what he was doing.
You have an iron shortage?
Very likely.
Balls. Beto went there. He
Yeah, and he's just like chowing
ate
down on
peyote
dirt.
with the. I don't know if I
Like maybe a ploy to capture the Haitian
ate
vote. I don't know.
dirt.
a categorically
right.
more intelligent way to spend his time than running for office.
Is
Yeah,
he still in politics? You just asked that question.
he ran for president in 2020.
You think he's going to run again?
I don't know. I don't even know what he's up to.
I know.
I
think
have
he
not
remains
heard his
active
name in
Texas
so long.
politics through his organization, Powered by People, which focuses on voter registration and rights. So he's still doing a little bit of
I think he
Gobbling
ran for
up donor
something.
dollars.
Yeah, he lost again. The other, he's lost everything he's done politically. I
You remember people were like, he's the next Abraham Lincoln because Abraham Lincoln lost a slate of elections before he became president. And then he just
Abraham
disappeared.
Lincoln,
I don't know if he-
noted
well,
skateboarder as well.
That's kind of
Yeah, I'm sure Abraham Lincoln was doing kick flips and bong rips.
Do you guys think Made would make it in America?
Made?
Yeah.
It would be difficult because it's like, there's a lot of restrictions. This is actually, one
State by
upside.
state, you got the 10th Amendment, so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, would it be allowed versus would it be widespread? I could see a situation in which it becomes allowed in quite a few blue states. Would it be like common? I don't think so, because again, the primary reason you're seeing Made utilized so heavily in Canada and the UK is because of their public health care, and they're trying to lessen the burden on the healthcare system. And again, if someone is facing potentially really expensive treatment, it's just a calculation they're running. They're saying, well, if we kill this person, then we don't have to pay for their
So
treatment.
MAID is the thing they're using to prescribe that to people in Canada. Right?
Medically assisted,
Oh, right.
whatever.
Yeah, it's just effectively like Doge for human beings. Like we're just saying, you're redundant and we're getting rid of you. And it's like, I wish that was a joke, but it's like real. I mean, it's insane what's going on up there. Literally, there was one guy, he was like, he broke his leg, I think was what it was. And like, instead of setting his leg, they like offered to kill him for
What?
Yeah. I'm like,
Did he take it?
was he a horse? Like, what is this?
Take him to the glue factory.
Yeah, literally.
Did he say okay? Did he go?
No,
I
because he
hope
wrote the
not.
piece. Yeah, he wrote the
Okay. I went to the doctor.
You know better.
I was like, they were like, how are you feeling? I was like, I'm very stressed. They were like, do you want medicine? I was like, no, I'll meditate. I'll meditate. Or I think he said, why are you stressed? I said, the liberal, that was a different situation. I was getting my weed card and they were like, why? I'm like, I'm stressed out about the liberal economic order. He's like, here you go. This last time I was like, yeah, I've been having anxiety. And it was like, the first thing they did was offer me medication. It was like, no ask about diet, nothing about my lifestyle. It was just, do you want something for that?
Yeah, and maybe to like
Glad MAID doesn't exist here.
Oh, I know. And I guess the reason you're seeing a lot of these policies pass is, again, this is something we've talked about in the show quite extensively, is, again, as sort of the high trust society in America erodes, you're going to have to see the government be more proactive to, again, ensure stability, ensure peace among the population. A great example would be El Salvador. A great example would be Singapore. These are two countries where, prior to the mass government crackdowns, and Singapore's Lee Kuan Yew and El Salvador's Bukele, and this was in our lifetime, so it's very prevalent, is these societies prior to the takeover of these, I would say it's fair to classify, and I'm not using this as a prerogative, authoritarian leaders. Prior to their ascension, these were countries with very low trust. These were places where people were terrified to go outside. These are places with like very, very minimal indications of like a healthy society. In El Salvador, obviously, it was culminating in violent crime. But even in Singapore, I mean, there was a lot of jostling over political power. Malaysia and the entirety of Southeast Asia at the time was a very chippy place, I think, to say the least. But Singapore was kind of interesting because they had a large Chinese population, and the rest of Malaysia was primarily Malay. So they viewed Singapore as like a problem. And so, again, when you have these very low-trust societies, the only way to ensure that the population is able to at least have, or able to ensure that society is going to function in any meaningful way, the government has to crack down hard. And that's what we're seeing across the West. Again, as the high trust societies break down for a variety of reasons, including immigration, which is vital. This is why it's so vital that the Trump administration really, knocks us out of the park, is because we have no choice but to move towards authoritarianism, again, if society continues to break down. And I don't want that. I don't want to live in an authoritarian society. I want to live in sort of a Rockwell painting America. Do you think the government was having to crack down hard? Do you think MAID would have even occurred to anyone, again, in a more classical American situation? No, people didn't even lock their doors. And that's like real. That's a very real thing. Yeah. Even the idea of the Wild West, like these gunslinging guys, that was exceptionally peaceful compared to what is going on now and what is now the West, like California, Oregon, Seattle. that's the direction we're going to have to go. If we can't agree as a country that, again, we need to have borders, we need to have national sovereignty, people need to be on the same page as far as ethics, morality, customs goes, we have no choice but to introduce a Bukele-style government if we want peace.
Now we're talking. I like that. It's possible to have a good, righteous, noble tyrant.
I agree.
You know, but we're going to be denied that. We're not going to be able to have that in the United States, unfortunately. But I'm glad you brought up Singapore, because that actually is a counterexample. That's a perfect multicultural society.
Sure.
Compared to other situations that are multicultural around the world, Singapore functions very well.
Why?
It's a multicultural society.
But it's a society that requires a lot of government intervention. A very
That's
active
right.
Government.
That's right. But hey, you know, you spit your gum on the sidewalk, then you're shunned.
Yeah.
I mean, they take care of their city and they take care of their citizens. And the citizens seem to, for the most part, take care of each other. You've got Chinese, Malay, Indian, Eurasian countries that are there.
Yeah, and it's the
works out
same.
great.
It's been the same ruling party now for 50, 60 years. Not because necessarily of oppression, but just because it hasn't occurred to them to vote them out. They're like, good job.
Because it's working. Because that's why I also fear for what's going to happen in El Salvador. And when Bukele's reign ends, if it does end, and I hope it doesn't.
Yeah. No, I think there'll be a bit of a vacuum. El Salvador is a slightly different case because it was just so exceptionally violent before. Their problem there isn't so much ethnic squabbling like you saw in Singapore, and El Salvador was just violent crime. Was
Satanic violent gangs.
Yeah, literally. Literal human sacrifice occurred. I mean, if you listen, I think it was also on Tucker's show, actually, Bukele talking about some of the things that were going on in El Salvador before the crackdown. I mean, it's like, even if you're a full-blown atheist, Reddit atheist with a fedora, that would send chills down your spine, some of the stuff going on in El Salvador prior to Bukele.
Yeah, in that interview, I'm pretty sure Tucker said, what was the first thing you did when you got in office? And he said, I prayed to God for wisdom.
Yeah.
Like, he's a really exceptional leader. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tucker was even, he kind of like laughed and was just like, why would a leader say that? Like, who thinks that way? And he's just like, why would you think otherwise?
Yeah.
Very wise, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
The American ICE crackdowns was like, I felt like a lead towards overt authoritarian crackdown on street violence, whatever, corruption in the system. But the people reviled so drastically that they pulled back. And now I feel like the authoritarianism is digital, like they're using Palantir to hunt this fraud down. I don't know what they're using.
They are using Palantir.
And it's secret and it's in the background. I'm kind of like, well played, sir. But at the same time, I feel like I'm ushering in the beast, like the totalitarian technocracy that's going to be spying on when I take a crap. It's going to be like, you got worms.
Yeah. Why do you think it's
Not that I have
authoritarian?
worms.
Why would you say it's authoritarian when they're obeying the law and doing what the law stated?
Well, if they make a law, like the Patriot Act's pretty authoritative, but they'll be like, hey, it's all legal.
But you gave an example of current ICE raids. That was all legal.
It's federal. It's like the executive branch making a pretty overt military action on the domestic population. So
military by taking out illegals who are not here.
Well, not just illegals were taken out, might I remind you. I mean, which tells you that a lot of these goons are just trained terribly. That's part of the problem. We could have an authoritarian regime that comes through and does a proper sweep, but these guys aren't trained for it. That's what we've seen in the streets.
6 months ain't enough, huh? Or whatever that is. I know it's quick.
Well, whatever it is, it's not enough. And also, it's being poorly executed at some level.
do you think it's better to call it a military action or a police action?
I would say it's a law enforcement action. I think the problem, and I'm supportive of ICE because I think what they're attempting to do is something that's very much overdue in the United States. But to Chris's point, I mean, part of the problem is, again, the reason why Bukele can do what he can do in El Salvador and the reason why it can't be replicated in the United States is because what is Bukele's approval rating? 92%. Now, it doesn't matter how well, let's just use a Republican as an example. It doesn't matter how well a Republican governs. The way that American society is currently structured, you're going to have at least half the country that's going to have a problem with it because it's just the nature of American society. And so, again, to take action as drastic as Nayib Bukele, we have to be like in a dire situation. And for the most part, most Americans, even though we're observing a lot of these problems in American society, most Americans still don't feel like they're cornered. I think that would be fair to say. I think American life still functions fairly well, even though it's obviously degraded. Obviously, our standard of living is dropping. You go to Walgreens, you got to beg the employee to get a stick of deodorant. But the fact that you can drive to a Walgreens and not worried about being carjacked, the worry about a shooting taking place at Walgreens, that indicates that we're not quite at El Salvador level.
Did Bukele? Does he control state media? Like, is it locked down in El Salvador? Internet and all that?
I don't actually know, and I don't think it would be terribly relevant because, as I understand, the way most of Latin America works is the media that they consume is mostly like civilizational. So, like again, like Telemundo, companies like this, Spanish language media kind of transcends national boundaries. So they don't have like a heavy media-rich atmosphere that's completely domestic. It's more of like an international sort of thing. This happens in Europe, where okay, maybe each country has their own specific, news aggregator or whatever. But like News 24 is quite ubiquitous across Europe. There's a few other outlets that come to mind, and as I understand it, that is the case in Latin America. So even if Bukele were to take total control of all media actions in the country, I don't think it'd be that consequential.
Is there free internet?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like El Salvador functions now as a first world country. It's just they have a heavy law enforcement. That's the only thing that's really ramped up in El Salvador is law enforcement, because they had to, because people were getting killed on the streets.
Did they make new laws, or did they just start enforcing what did they do?
Like a good example, well, it's not necessarily a new law. I think now it's been codified into law, but when he declared emergency powers to, again, secure the country, he was basically saying this is like a national security threat. A good example would be anyone with a gang tattoo was going to be brought in to the police department and then processed accordingly. And that was something that was later codified into law, but at the time that was through emergency powers.
Through law, but actually in practice, what would happen is that like during those early crackdowns, if you're talking to a gang member, then you go to prison. And you might not ever be heard from again.
Yeah.
I know people from El Salvador where that's happened. They've said, oh, my cousin was caught talking to a gang member, wasn't involved. He got caught up in the raids. He went to prison. Never going to hear from him again.
Yeah.
And they told me, this is, of course, anecdotal, but they said that's a trade-off we'd be willing to make because that's how bad it was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that, like at its peak, I think like 4% of El Salvador's population was actually imprisoned. And to Chris's point, because things got so dire, they were like, look, we got to crack a couple eggs and make an omelet. Like, I don't want to risk dying when I just walk outside to collect my newspaper. The United States isn't there yet. That's just the reality. I mean, people are melting down over like, what was the guy that got returned to El Salvador and then brought back?
Manuel Garcia.
Maryland man, right? The
Maryland
Maryland
father.
man. And like the entire, like, at least half of the country was like ready to riot over it. So that just tells you that like, even though things are heading that direction, we're just not quite there yet.
And I don't think we should ever, well, maybe not never, but ideally we shouldn't have to beg the federal government to police our neighborhoods. Like that's what we're supposed to do as American citizens with militia. And, ideally, I think that's the intention of the nation.
In theory, but
Maybe I'm wrong.
I dig it. I dig the local militia thing. I mean, we're in a different state than what we used to be back in the day. But having your own local militia nowadays
right. Like how could you organize ice raids with the local?
That'd be like having the protected neighborhood community guys, but they get in trouble because they're terrorists because they're a group patrolling their own streets.
Yeah,
which is dumb in itself.
Well, in the areas that you would really need to penetrate the most are very Democrat areas, so major cities, the state of California, et cetera,
you're not coming to the suburbs.
Precisely. So even then, I mean, look, half the country voted for Trump, and Trump was pretty explicit that, yes, we're going to send federal agents into these cities to deport illegal immigrants. And so half the country signed off on it. That was like his biggest policy that everyone was talking about. With that, we got to get into this next story, move on a bit from immigration. I could talk about it all day. Yeah. From Time, California mayor resigns, admitting to being an agent for China. Ooh. The mayor of a Los Angeles suburb resigned Monday as U.S. officials announced that she will plead guilty in federal court to acting as an illegal agent for the Chinese government. Federal prosecutors announced Monday that Eileen Wang, 58, of Arcadia, California, has been charged with one count of acting in the U.S. as an illegal agent of a foreign government and is, quote, expected to plead guilty in the coming weeks. The charge is punishable with up to 10 years in prison. Quote, Mayor Wang admitted to acting as a foreign agent from at least 2020 through 2022, promoting PRC propaganda in the United States and acting at the PRC's direction, to promote their interests. This was according to Kash Patel. FBI and our federal partners continue to move aggressively to root out this kind of influence in American institutions all over the country. Here's just a little background on Eileen here. Come on, Eileen. Wang was elected in November 2022 to a 5-member Arcadia City Council where the mayor is selected on a rotating basis. City manager Dominic Lazaretto said in a statement Monday that Wang, who became mayor in February, has resigned from the council. Guys, what do we make of this? Because this is a really bizarre story. It's fascinating. I think there's been a little bit of suspicion for a long time that, again, whether we like it or not, the CCP has probably infiltrated the United States a little bit more than we would like to care to admit. Now, obviously, this is high profile because this is an elected official, but there's been discussions at the student visa level, like a lot of these students coming in from China. Again, these people, they keep a tight, stiff upper lip. Like they will not disclose a lot of their, premonitions. So what do you guys make of all this?
Well, not to go for the low-hanging fruit, but I think it was kind of a dick move on Mrs. Wang's part to do that. Those are the only dick jokes I'm going to make. I apologize. I mean, I'm not surprised by it. I'm really not. You see this subversion by the CCP in America in many facets of American life. You see it a lot online as well. So I'm not surprised at all to see it starting at the local level. We also know former Representative Swalwell allegedly had an affair with an alleged Chinese spy. I don't know if this was before or after the hotel room video thing came out, but
I think it was before, because I remember
before.
that. Yeah,
There's so many weird.
I know. Why is there so many?
That,
Which was funny because Swalwell got busted again. Rape charges pending and all that. Initially, what's gotten him thrown out was basically infidelity, which is wrong, obviously, but it's not the first time a congressman's cheated on his wife. I would have thought the affair with a CCP agent was worthy of getting kicked out of Congress and probably your citizen stripped, but that's just me.
I didn't really realize he was married with a family. This guy's been all over the place.
I didn't realize he was straight.
Yeah.
So
I still don't realize it. I'm just kidding.
And in recent years, at least 15 Chinese spies and operatives have been linked to the People's Republic of China in California alone.
How many?
15 since 2019. So the last 6 years, I've got at least 15 per the Brave thing. But also, there's so many more out there. We know there's more out there. They're buying our farmland first and foremost, and we're buying their infrastructure for our power grid. I mean, that's a different subject. We can go crazy on that. But there's so many spies out there. Just in California, we got 15 people last couple of years. So many.
It was a mayor. How does it? So what happened? She's Chinese. I was in the bathroom, full disclosure, but I don't know if you explained this already, but she was what? She had a Chinese family, so the CCP is blackmailing her or getting her to give state secrets or something back to the party. How deep does this go?
I think she's just a fan of the CCP. Yeah. I think that's what they're born and raised to be their country. It's like being a real American. Unlike a lot of folks, like she's a real proud Chinese woman, CCP person. She comes to America. She could have been a baby anchor. We don't freaking know, but there's a lot of ways to go about it. And so she's here becoming the mayor, take over a little town to help China, buy maybe more farmland, buy more electrical grids. She's just an operative, bro.
Well, yeah, she was born in China, actually. So she was born in China, and then she came over here as a child because her father took a gig at USC.
Okay. And
that's how she ended up in Southern California. But it is very concerning. I mean, obviously it's very concerning if the CCP is electing officials in the United States. But it's difficult because, again, we have to view all people as interchangeable cogs, and that people will not have, again, preconceived notions regarding how they view American sovereignty and these sorts of things. And we're going to continue to be surprised and blindsided by this. Of course, hers is promoting the interests of a global adversary. In China's case, that's why this was specifically so egregious. And she was collaborating with the government of China. That's what the charge is here. But you see, I mean, Ilhan Omar literally gets up and she's like, I'm fighting for the Somali community. And it's like, okay, Somalia is not a global adversary. But again, does raise the question, what are you doing here then? You know, if you're not here to serve Americans, if you're not here to serve your constituents, you're here to serve Somalis? It's a very salient question because, you know, whether we like it or not, in the same state of California, Steve Hilton running for governor there, he's not like getting up and saying, I'm going to fight for the British community in California. It's like, you know, it's a tough conversation to have, but we need to be a little realistic here is like, again, if someone is born in China and they're a little bit vague or opaque on these types of issues, it's worth a second look. I mean, that's happened a bunch of times. We saw in New York City a few years ago where a bunch of NYPD officers that were Chinese born got busted for CCP ties.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's been the discussion of people in the House of Representatives and the Senate should not be able to hold dual citizenship. Should that,
agreed,
first of all, be enacted? Absolutely, 1,000%. But should that trickle down to the local level as well? Like, you really need to prove that you're loyal to America and only America, and even more so your local community. So everything starts at the community level and just moves up from there. So
her campaign manager also, by the way, is Yao Ning's son is serving 4-year prison sentence as well. So her campaign manager, so there's a couple people involved. It's just not just her, it's a group.
And it's so tricky because, again, this is Arcadia, California, which I'd never even heard of.
That's what I was going to say. I understand the concern, but how sharp of a propaganda sword is he really going to wield in Arcadia, California?
Well, that's terrible talk, my friend, because they start small and they build yourself up.
In California?
Yeah.
Let him deal with himself.
They're in America.
You know?
I don't care what. I don't care what state they're in.
My
they're in
interjection
America.
here would be that, again, the CCP is actually quite clever here with where, let's just say she was operating as a provocateur. They were directing her political career, which I don't think is true. I think she had overlapping interests and then ended up working with the CCP. But again, the reason I say no one's ever heard of Arcadia is because no one would be looking there. Again, if like Eileen Wang became, mayor of Los Angeles, that'd be a lot more high profile. You would probably have people combing through her story a lot more extensively. And we would have found this out a lot earlier. My concern is that, again, people are able to operate away from the limelight. She's not high profile at all. And again, no one's ever heard of this town or the suburb or whatever. No offense if you're an Arcadian. Let's just be honest.
I've heard of
Arcadia.
It's near LA. It's 13 miles northeast of LA.
It's a suburb.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's like, unless you like are from the area, it's not consequential. It's not consequential at the at the national level. But again, this is, if they're able to control bite-sized chunks of the country, that's a bigger problem.
It's close to LA.
And there's a couple things that that come to mind for me as to the rationale as to why China would be interested in that. I mean, the majority of our elected officials started at the local level as a city councilman or a local mayor. So you get in with them early. They move up through the political food chain, and eventually you have a senator or a president who is beholden to China. But then also you look at what is the city council and mayor? Like, what do they do? What are they in charge of? Let's say you have an American company trying to get a permit to build a data center or build a factory or something. The mayor can veto that. The mayor can mess with that, give preference to a Chinese company. So there's like little things that they can do. But I think really they're just playing the long game. I think Swalwell even started out as a city councilman, not to circle back to him, but he's just too funny.
What was he was dating a Chinese spy? That's right. Fang, is that what it is?
Yeah, but while he was married as well, I think. So.
And then he gave her was he giving her secrets, or was it just just dating as Chinese spies enough?
I don't know what their pillow talk was, but apparently dating a Chinese spy was not enough because he didn't really suffer any consequences from it until the video of him with some random hooker came out.
Clearly the least perverse person working for the federal government.
Yeah.
I was also going to say that's the same thing as like we'll just take Britain, England, for example. You start small, like with their Muslim community and the Pakistanis, and for people, South Asians. You start small and you build and you build and you build and you build, and then you take over. And we can't be having that in America. We can't allow it, and I will not stand by.
This is why it's so concerning when you see, again, like ethnic voting blocks, because again, they may be able to just participate in the system as it stands, as like 2026 terms. The UK is a great example where, again, they experience large scale mass migration. A lot of these people came from Islamic countries and they came to the United Kingdom, and the share of like foreign born or foreign heritage in the UK is far lower than the United States. So, the United States, you might start to see this mobilization occur. Last local elections in the UK, it was last weekend. Again, the Muslim migrants to Britain primarily voted for the Labour Party, which would be the analog for maybe the Democrat Party in the United States. They're, varying depending on who's in charge, left wing to center left. The Muslims are fine voting for this Labour Party for a long time. But again, they would make statements that people on the right would point to and said, hey, these guys are planning on mobilizing. It's not going to be like a, global intifada. It's going to be just influencing your government to benefit that community. What we saw in the last local elections is quite literally a Muslim sovereignty party got maybe 200 local councilors elected, which would be the equivalent of like city councilors in the United States. That's insane. There's like a literal party for Islamic fundamentalism. Is this to say that we should be worried about strictly an Islamic takeover? Maybe, maybe not. My point I'm making here is that, again, we should fear foreign blocs coming to our countries and then advocating for their own policy above their adopted countrymen. You're seeing this in the United States all the time. Tyler Oliveira was talking about it. I mean, he's talking Somalis, Yemenis. I'm sorry, the Hasidics in New York, big problem. I'm sorry. Like, I know it's like taboo to say, but like, let's be honest here, big problem.
It's something I kind of bite my tongue about asking guests if they come on if they're Jewish. I'm like, do you think of yourself as an American Jew or a Jewish American?
Well, great Judar, because I was born Jewish and raised Jewish. I was never bar mitzvahed though, so I'm technically not a man. Explains my sense of humor. But no, I think of myself as an American. I grew up here. This is all I've ever known. I've never been to Israel. I never took the birthright trip. I thought about going a couple of years ago before October 7th and regret not going to, pre-October 7th Israel because it's different now. I think of myself as an American, as you should. You live here. That's
when
part of the beauty.
When I come across a person that's like, I'm an American Jew, I'm like, well, what's your allegiance then? Is
To
it
America.
and it's okay. Like Judaism isn't you don't have allegiance to Israel if you're Jewish, but then somehow they try and make you think you do. So you're like are you supposed to be beholden to another country if you think of yourself as a Jew above all else? I don't like that.
Well, we have to
Depends
start.
on the Jew.
Yeah, I mean, we have to start granular here because obviously, like what I brought up was the Hasidic community in Brooklyn. And again, if you can't differentiate between like a Hasidic and like Jerry Seinfeld, then you probably shouldn't be participating in the conversation because there's like two dramatically different groups of people. And again, like people just have poor understandings of like demographics, how these things work, et cetera, where again, like you would be indistinguishable from any other American, even someone like Jerry Seinfeld, like very well integrated and ingrained in American society versus, again, like Hasidic Jewish people, which is a specific sect of Judaism that, again, they're extrapolating exorbitant amounts of welfare money from the taxpayer. They refuse to assimilate. They've been here 3-4 generations, and they refuse to do business with Americans. They literally refer to us as outsiders.
They have their own police force.
They have their own police force. So again, I'm just contesting the idea that we should tolerate like ethnic blocks existing in the United States. Does that mean the federal government should go there and bust it up? No, I'm just saying that people have the right to be upset when groups come to this country promising that they're going to participate in the American Social Compact, and then they don't. They get here and just do their own thing. We're talking about like Somalia. Everyone on the right was comfortable chest beating over Somalis, but then as soon as Talal Rivera went to Curious Joel in New York, all of a sudden it was a big problem. And I'm just saying we got to be consistent across all of these. Again,
Yes.
America, majority Christian. The Amish, everyone's like, well, what about the Amish? The Amish refuse, they refuse to take any American taxpayer dollar. They just moved out to the country. They're an afterthought. No offense to the Amish, but they're not even watching. They're not
watching.
Are there American like enclaves of like Australians or of Irish? Does
No.
that exist anymore? Because they all speak English, they just diasporate.
No, yeah, that goes back to my original point. Is like, okay, who is going to be more assimilable into the United States? Yeah. Well, the fact that we don't really have any Australian or British or Irish like blocks that advocate for their own people indicates that they assimilate quite well.
Like an Australian
Boston's
comes
pretty
here.
Close.
yeah,
What's that?
Boston's pretty close.
Like
Yeah.
I feel like if a group of Australians get here, they'd be like, "All right, I'm getting away. I'm out. I'm going to the like they want to immigrate. They want to integrate.
yeah.
Most. I mean, I think of them as already like Americans with a funny accent. No offense, guys. I know I'm the one with the weird accent, but then some cultures they stick together because they don't speak the language. That's a big part of it. They're afraid of the outside because they don't understand it.
Yeah.
But then some of them do speak the language and they still isolate. And I don't maybe you're speaking about the Hasidics. I don't know their languages.
They
Or
speak
what?
Yiddish.
Do they speak English as well?
Some.
So it's a lot of it's a language barrier.
I remember,
Actually-
like, I used to live in like Brooklyn, and I would see school buses that had Hebrew on them.
It's Yiddish, yeah. So it's a Hebrew
Yeah, I was
script.
like, wow.
Yeah.
They have their own school buses.
Yeah, it's insane. And like, this is why we have to have a sensible immigration. I know we've been hitting on it all show, but it's so true because I think about myself. If I were to move to Australia, if I were to move to Britain, if I were to move to Ireland, it would be quite easily for me to assimilate into local life. My accent would be different. That would be about it. I would assimilate quite quickly. Now, if I moved to Algeria, I'd be pretty freaked out. I would refuse to assimilate most likely, and I would like require my kids to like sort of be brought up in my cultural tastes, my cultural customs, et cetera, because it's very exotic. And the reason that is a good reason for why Algeria should reject me if I ever seek to immigrate there, because it's very sensible for me to view a very exotic culture as potentially adversarial to my core values and my core beliefs. So we just have to flip flop the other way around. That's just the reality of the situation. Is okay, if I move to Greece, would I assimilate? Maybe a little bit. It'd be difficult for me to grasp the language, but at least it would be a little bit less of a barrier than it would be if I moved to China. I would never be Chinese, ever. It would never happen. It'd be impossible for me to assimilate there.
I tried in South America and Chile, but they just kept calling me Thor. It was so stressful not speaking the language. I couldn't I couldn't start a business. I was trying to start a graphene company. It was next to impossible. I couldn't even communicate with the investors. I had to get a guy to speak Spanish to the guy, and he couldn't talk about what I believed, and so it was impossible to get the thing off the ground.
Yeah.
I can't. Trying to turn that around and think about what these people are going through. But I guess it's just better because what I would say is like use the internet. If you want to change the culture of the United States to Yiddish or to Somali or whatever the freak you're doing, use the internet. Don't come here and disrupt from the inside or there's going to be problems. But then if they don't come here, then they don't get the benefits of being here. So I understand why you came here.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're making a really good point is we can't necessarily be channeling all of our outrage at the people that were just following a very natural incentive structure, which was the border was wide open. There was zero impetus for them to assimilate, so they took that chance. Again, I'm more upset at our lawmakers and the people that cheered them on when they were advocating for this suicidal immigration policy. I'm far more upset with them. Same thing in Britain. I mean, okay, yes, you can be upset, especially at the ones that are committing crimes, but broadly, most of your ire should be directed at your lawmakers that allowed this to happen. Yeah, because again, these people were following very natural incentive structures. The border was wide open, et cetera, et cetera. There was all these benefits extended to them. I mean, yeah, that's obviously what they would do.
For sure. And the NGOs.
Yeah, they
whatever.
get bus
The
rides.
NGOs, all the people that cheered them on.
Catholic charities. That's why Catholics are great, but they have some issues because they brought them up here a lot.
Yeah.
Well, even in the Jewish community, HIAS, HAIS, I think they're a big NGO that really, really pushes immigration. I think even Laura Loomer dug into them. Like, that's how corrupt that's
how bad it got.
Yeah. It's like,
if Laura Loomer's, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is important to stay focused on anger at the policies and the non-governmental organizations and not the individuals, man, because that's like you were saying earlier, like COINTELPRO, you want to get a global revolution and you want to topple the United States, get them to go at each other from the inside, and then get them to beg for technocracy to spy on these foreigners, that crap. I don't want to say it like it's, you got to be careful with even joking about it or hypothesizing it because it could happen.
Speak it into existence.
Yeah, well, let me make another attempt. I failed on the last one. Let me make another attempt of segueing into a segment that is not immigration focused. It's my fault. I love talking about it. From the Gateway Pundit, breaking: 2 high-level White House insiders caught on undercover video bragging about internal subversion against President Trump. One has been placed on leave. The O'Keefe Media Group on Tuesday released undercover video of White House insiders bragging about an internal subversion against President Trump. Maxime Lott, a special assistant to President Trump on the White House Domestic Policy Council, admitted to the OMG, I love that their initials are OMG, by the way, the OMG undercover journalist, that domestic policy decisions are often made based on what, quote, feels like a good idea. He continued, in theory, everything should come from the president, but it might come from the level below him. Trump, where they're like, I think I know the president well enough to say what he would say on this. Benjamin Elliston, a budget analysis manager within the executive office of the president, expressed, quote, we have to get rid of Trump. He's, talking about Trump, effing it up for everybody. We've got to get rid of him. The O'Keefe Media Group continued here. Maxime Lott, et cetera, admitted, Lott reveals that White House officials frequently make decisions based on their own interpretation of Trump's preferences, stating, quote, I think I know what the president well enough to see what he would say on this. So again, this is what we all discussed. I'm going to play this video here from James O'Keefe. This is really some shocking stuff here. Take a look at this.
Like, the decision-making processes are a little bit chaotic.
A White House policy advisor opens up about the internal decision-making processes throughout the White House.
I think it's just the overall tone and, the government right now is a little bit unusual, it's trying to fix itself.
Maxime Lott even acknowledges that officials below Trump will often make decisions for the president, presuming what his stance would be.
In theory, everything should sort of come from the president. Yeah. But it might come from the level below him where they're like, I think I know the president well enough to say what he would say on this.
So, okay, it's 15 minutes of this. I don't know Maxime Lott. I don't know what his policies are. I could potentially have overlapping policy positions with him. My first contention is, can we please stop spilling our guts to journalists? Because we're on a date and then we just spill our guts to this woman and presuming that, again, first of all, that your date would care. Hello, what are we doing here? What kind of Riz is that? That's all Riz. So again, I'm not necessarily even making the contention that Maxime Lott is behaving subversively here, because again, I don't know specifically what his policy proposals is. So I'm exonerating myself from this. He could potentially be a great guy. The problem here is the principle, the idea that there are Trump staffers that feel comfortable enough to openly admit that they are making policy-making decisions based off of what they think Trump would make.
It's also indication that the centralized authority of the president is not it's a lot of governance that has to go through this one guy that doesn't have time for it, apparently.
That's why I don't find this even remotely scandalous or revelatory. I mean, I assume this is what's happening.
Yeah.
What these people are saying. But I mean, they're talking about it trickling up, sort of. That's kind of strange, because I thought we were governed by a permanent, unelected bureaucracy behind the scenes that's never held to account for anything. So
we're taking the power back.
Yeah, I mean, because here's at least as I see it, the fundamental problem here is you would expect cabinet officials to say something like this, because again, they were appointed by Trump. They were appointed by Trump because of their expertise in said department and like what they would be overseeing. So again, it would make sense. I don't know, Brooke Rollins, the USDA administrator. It would make sense that she does operate with a bit of autonomy because again, President Trump has put her in that position, presuming that she will carry out his agenda in that position. And if she ever ceased to do that, she would be reprimanded or removed from her position. We've seen this countless times. It is a little concerning here that again, I don't know anything about Maxime Lott. He could have some fantastic policies. I'm not dragging the guy. I am saying that the principle here is a bit concerning that they feel comfortable enough to operate like this because we have seen sometimes throughout President Trump's administration that some of these policymakers, especially in Trump 1, it's not big as big, has not been as big of a problem in Trump 2, but in Trump 1, we did have a lot of rogue policymakers. It was very real. And okay, yes, the unelected bureaucrat problem is a problem, but again, we're talking about, is President Trump going to be able to oversee every single thing going on? No, that's why he has cabinet officials. That's why he has appointees, et cetera. But on domestic policy, that should be something that Trump and his trusted circle should be dictating. Your Stephen Millers, these sorts of people. So I don't know what you guys make of all this.
Scale it. What do you say?
I was going to say, yeah, there's delegation. I agree with what you're saying, Tabe. Say if Ian wanted me to build a bat house, and he's like, put a bat house over there, put a bat house over there so we can get bats at night. They can kill our mosquitoes. And I'm building it and I make it and I don't know where exactly to put it. So I might use my own judgment to put the bat house here and this one over there. I mean, this is a whole different scale because we don't know like what's exactly going on. We just know what the dude said.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So maybe we can go on that. I mean, it's very salacious.
And if you went to Mark, you also have, and we're like, Ian's messing it up. We got to get rid of Ian, man. This birdhouse thing. I'm just doing that's what these guys are talking about. They're talking crap about. If you're talking crap about me after you were building my beautiful birdhouse, I'd be very upset.
Bat house, by the way.
Your bat house.
Yeah, I would suggest that you build a bat cave instead, to be honest.
Ooh. Yeah,
see, I knew you would like that. See, this is why I should be your special assistant.
You're fired. He's hired.
Yeah.
You see what happens?
Build tunnels.
We need more special assistants everywhere. Yeah, I think look, Maxime Lott, okay, he's likely a Trump appointee, so I think it would be safe to say that the way he's conducted himself would probably be in line with the Trump agenda broadly. But you brought up unelected bureaucrats. There are a lot of people, you can ask anyone that works in the admin, they have to work with people that are not on board with the Trump agenda. Yeah. Do they feel empowered to conduct themselves in this manner? Because again, I don't think this is scandalous what Maxime Lott has said here, and I don't think this is really an indictment necessarily of what he's saying. I think it's more of an indictment of the general culture of how the White House operates. This would have been a problem under Biden, would have been a problem under Trump 1, would have been a problem under Obama. Is again, do bureaucrats who are not Trump appointees, that were not signed off on when people voted for President Trump, do they feel empowered to conduct themselves in this manner? That is concerning. Are they discreetly subverting the Trump administration at times? That's a possibility. I'm not entirely sure.
No, that's not a possibility. That's 100%. I can almost guarantee it that they're doing one little thing, this or that, dotting one T, missing one comma, or anything else that they're going to do any kind of subvert anything they can if not in with the Trump program.
And technically, if there's a 100% chance of something occurring, it is possible. So you're both right.
I did agree with them, but yeah.
Yeah, I was being a little neurotic there. I think so. I think this is what you call deep state. This is administrative overreach, administrative authority, where they just take it. And some people probably think like, I have one chance at this, and Trump is a demagogue. I have to do this now for the good of the people. Who knows how cyclical or how twisted people's reasoning can be when they're justifying their behaviors. And maybe some people are actually doing it and it's helping.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and like my concern wouldn't be so much the White House Domestic Policy Council. I imagine everyone there is on board. And again, if you're sticking your head out to advocate for something that would not be in line with the Trump administration's, popular agenda, so to speak, you'd probably get canned pretty quickly. My concern would more be on the intel side, because this is where we know that there's a lot of rogue bureaucrats, rogue intel actors. And again, that is where they're able to shape policy in ways that really slide under our noses. That can be concerning. I mean, this is why the Trump administration is trying to clean house with FSOs. These are our agents that we dispatch to, conduct American diplomacy overseas and these sorts of things. That's a lot of positions that you have to overturn. So they are dependent to some degree. It's getting better, but they were dependent for a long time on career guys. And career guys have their own agenda. Career guys are not signed off on by the American people when they're elected. And the intel apparatus is littered with them. Now, Tulsi Gabbard, obviously, we've seen stories where she has attempted to clean house. But again, you only have access to so much personnel. There's a lot of things that need to get done, and it runs the risk of, again, these people that just feel like, hey, it's kind of the culture down here to just kind of, I'm doing this. President Trump would be totally in line with this, and then conduct operations, in a variety of ways that would be drastically out of step.
Well, the intelligence community is essentially a de facto fourth branch of government
Sure.
at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you look at the integration with Palantir, Peter Thiel's past association with J.D. Vance. Really, like Palantir, their big thing is right now that they're looking for is reauthorization of the FISA 702 authority. That's the warrantless mass metadata collection that sweeps up everyone's communications. And you look at the last time that came up, and J.D. Vance abstained from voting. He didn't vote yes or no, and so that gives me a little bit of pause. Like, is he actually going to affect change and actually like push people away from that sort of thing, or is he going to be beholden to the billionaire class? But it's just Peter Thiel instead of George Soros. Is that?
I hear he's a right-hand man, or maybe like his mentor is Peter Thiel in certain aspects. Like that can be very bad for us as a country if you love technocracy, if his main goal is to, follow what this gentleman says, what Peter Thiel says, instead of what the American people say.
Well, it's kind of a difficult subject to approach because, again, best case scenario, you have 0 billionaires influencing politics. Obviously, that'd be a best case scenario.
Yeah.
We go back to the way that our country was constructed. The situation that we're in, where again, we do have a security apparatus, we do have an intel apparatus, we have a surveillance apparatus, whether we like it or not, is a company like Palantir, is this person like Peter Thiel, more or less amenable to the desires of conservatives than basically any of the other offerings? Because the way I view it, at least, is that you have to view it like a vacuum. If Palantir, if we truly united against Palantir and pushed them out of any influence in the U.S. government, does Meta or Alphabet not just step in and absorb that vacuum? I mean, that's the way I view it, where I'm like, okay, well, at least, and I'm not like running cover for Palantir. I'm just trying to be like, trying to look at this objectively. At least they're amenable to, again, popular conservative policymaking. At least they seem to, again, maybe push things in our direction from time to time versus, again, the United States, whether we like it or not, they're going to scrape data. That's just the way the world works. Would rather have like, I don't know, a Bill Gates or a Mark Zuckerberg overseeing that operation, or potentially figures that we don't even know? I don't know. This is why I'm postulating this out loud.
I think about it every day, dude. Almost every day. The CCP could be the one. Like, sure. if the vacuum, if we were to say like, hey, no more spying ever in America, none. Somebody's going to do it, and then we're disempowered because our own government doesn't have the access to the data. And there's a lot of things in the United States that want to destroy the United States that it's kind of good that our government knows about. I'd love to hear what your take is on it, Mark.
I don't know. It's tricky. It's tricky. I don't want to be like make like a King Solomon analogy or anything. We have to split the baby, but really, America is founded on privacy. That is one of the core tenets, and we essentially don't have it anymore. And I think it's bad that the government's doing these things, but much to your point, there's private corporations doing this as well. There's so many data aggregators that are scraping everything that you do online and packaging it up and selling it to the highest bidder. So it's like, do I want the government doing that, or do I want a private corporation profiting off of it? And right now we have both.
Yeah.
So
And do we want a pure privacy area, like per privacy? Like you cannot, I mean, this is a terrible thing to say maybe. Do we not want anyone looking in on our people who might be terrorist cells or doing terrible things? Like they're behind a wall, nobody knows what's going on, and then they can come around the wall and do what they do. Like,
I think so. Last night when we were talking, me and Brett Weinstein, I was talking about, he was like, we needed like a digital Second Amendment. What would that look like? And I said, I think that would be like everyone has access to their own personal artificial intelligence off the grid that gives you completely unchained, unlocked data. You can be like, how do I make this dangerous thing? How can I do this horrible thing? And it will tell you everything. And that's your arm against the digital overlord system. But like, then we wouldn't know what people are doing, and they could be making the most devastating weapons in secret, and no one would know. And like,
but that is kind of feels like the American way.
Yeah, I mean, we should be allowed to have nuclear weapons as private citizens. I mean, you're supposed to have parity with the military. I think that was the true intent of the Second Amendment. Granted, they couldn't think of nuclear bombs at that point in time.
Someone's like running your pockets and like, I'm going to nuke you if you don't give me your wallet.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
But I mean, I don't know if there's really a solution, because much to your point, you should be able to track down bad actors. You should be able to figure out when people are planning something that is bad, that is going to hurt American citizens. But at the same time, you shouldn't just willy-nilly scrape up every single bit of information, put it on an NSA server in Utah, mask it, and have the ability at some point in the future to get a warrant and go back through time and look at all of that information that was collected outside of the warrant, but the warrant applies retroactively. Like, that is the current FISA system.
Yeah.
And that's not constitutional, but I guess it technically is because Congress voted on it because freedom.
Well,
I don't know.
And it's one of those difficult conundrums, because it's like, once you start a boss fight, you can't walk away from the boss fight. A good example I would use for this is, again, you have a lot of people who are deeply concerned about the surveillance state. They're deeply concerned about all these things, and I totally agree. That is a concern. It's sad that we're in this moment. Yeah. But following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, everyone was clamoring for a massive crackdown on, left-wing agitators, Antifa, et cetera, but then they simultaneously held both positions. And I'm like, what do you think a crackdown is going to entail of? Door knocking, police like randomly door knocking? No, it's going to be data collection. They're going to determine who's talking to who. They're going to, wiretap phones, investigate, any potential terror blocks, these sorts of things. And that's just the reality of the world we live in. In the same instance where it's like, I understand the apprehension to AI. The problem is, we can, as a society, decide we're going to take our foot off the gas. We're going to return to the 1990s. China's not. And again, if you start falling behind in technological races, they're not going to say, oh, okay, well, U.S. gave up, so we can chill now. No, that's just not how it works. It's unfortunate. I wish it wasn't that way, but at least the way I see it is China can just dominate us in 30, 40 years.
Well, outsourcing all of our highly advanced technological manufacturing to China was not the best idea.
No kidding.
Yeah. Or power grids, example one. Power grids. You kidding me? Freaking China, they make our parts for a lot of our major power grids, and they can put a little switch in it or whatever they want to do to turn it all off.
Think of all the zero-day exploits that are built into like devices that are made in Chinese factories, American devices designed, and a factory in China, they could just sneak something in and keep that to themselves.
Like those pagers.
I was going to say,
pagers. That, when you were saying like the surveillance state, or how would a crackdown look? It would be like data aggregation, see who's talking to who. I started to think about Bukele and how people were getting locked up for talking to a gang member, and like that's why I think we got to start slow with this spy tech, deep state technocratic, because if it goes too hard, if we wait too long and then it becomes really, really desperately abrupt, you will go to prison for talking to someone that was bad. Like, it could be that bad. So I think saying, like you're saying, you can't just say no, don't, because then someone else will do it. And if we don't, so we have to do it like in a ethical way, if there's even such a thing.
Yeah. Well, it's the same argument that like conservatives will make on gun control, which is like, okay, if you ban guns, like let's just say a city of Memphis, right? A city with exceptionally high crime, violent crime. Well, we're going to ban guns to stop gun crime. Well, that doesn't stop the criminals. That just stops the like law-abiding citizens who would obey with whatever the law is. The law says don't murder, so they don't murder. So it's like, again, if you implement gun control, if you implement gun bans, that only impacts people that were already abiding by the law anyway. So It's like you're not actually preventing anything from, any bad actors from acting maliciously. It's kind of at least as I see it, the same fundamental principle that we're talking about here, which is, okay, you're stripping it away from people that weren't intending to use it for evil anyway. You're just guaranteeing that, again, like a China or other rogue bad actors gobble up even more power.
Mark, you were saying that what's unconstitutional, or what is unconstitutional but is currently legal, which is a weird way to put it, is that they're scraping up mass amounts of data. Yeah. So how do you feel about pre-crime technology, where they only scrape up data if they think they've determined through like artificial intelligence algorithmics that you might or very likely could be a problem?
But then, I don't know, just with we've seen so much AI likes to hallucinate a lot. It likes to aim to please its master, whoever, there's right now somewhere in the world, there is the stupidest person ever typing something into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is, you're absolutely right. That's a great idea. Yeah, does that extend to these government-based machines as well? Could there be issues? I don't necessarily like the idea of a pre-crime type of thing, especially driven by AI.
Yeah, this whole situation we find ourselves in, it's an ironclad finger trap, Chinese finger trap, if you will.
And Fang, we talking about her again?
Fang.
She's the finger trap.
Well, maybe for some. But I do just want to say that I know that my dear friend and colleague Shane Cashman wants desperately to teleport himself into this room and set us all straight on Palantir.
Yeah.
And I'll just share one thing that he said on X today that it's one of those things I read it once and I'm never going to forget it. He said that J.D. Vance is the data center of politicians. Oh. Fantastic.
When you say we're in a Chinese finger trap, what do you mean exactly?
Well, you can't unleash yourself from it. Like we're stuck in this situation.
in,
We can't,
you can't come
like Tate was saying, we can't decelerate where we're at, and we have to be very careful about accelerating it. So it's a finger trap.
Well, those things,
yeah.
if you try and pull out of it, you can't get out. But if you push in slowly, then you can extricate yourself.
That would be a deceleration option in terms of this probably a little wonky metaphor, and that has its drawbacks too.
Yeah, well,
You know?
and this is why I take this sort of contrarian position, because on the right, again, the popular, I'm not going to say boogeyman because that's kind of a degrading thing to say, but I just can't think of a better synonym to use here. Why people again constantly pointing to Palantir? Again, I'm just saying I'm kind of in that boat to some degree. Is like, well, there's not many options right now. There's not many options. Again, we're speaking in very abstract solutions. Like, well, what if we could have like a Faraday cage for our phones or something? It's probably not going to happen with the options at our disposal right now. Again, democracy is very rigid. Democracy is pretty much impossible to collapse. I mean, South Africa is a great example. South Africa should have collapsed a long time ago, but the way that again liberal democracies function, it is very hard to collapse one. So again, Palantir, you just have to evaluate on its face, articulate what specifically is bad about it and what makes it worse than any of the other data collector shows in town that again will just gobble up any vacuum left over from Palantir. That's just my question. Again, I don't want any of these companies to exist. I think it's a very traumatic, intrusive thing that data collection is even occurring. It's just my initial point. Once you start the boss battle, you can't really go back.
Would you do a world where everyone knew everyone's thoughts?
No, that'd be terrible. Like I like human
immediately.
autonomy. I have a very classically American view of privacy. It's like the more the better. But
What did you say, Mark?
I said I would get arrested immediately.
I think we all would.
Yeah.
Oh, there goes that.
Yeah. Eric, we could have stopped Eric Swalwell in his tracks. That would have been.
I used to fantasize about a world where we all could read each other's brains, just in.
The hive mind.
Yeah, I was like, what better? How else will we curb the chaos and death of tribalism unless we're all one unit? But that's very Borg,
Yeah, well,
I watched the first season of Pluribus as well.
What's that?
It's a Apple TV show about an alien hive mind virus that comes in, and there's a couple people that are resistant to it, but it's very interesting.
And not to go too cliche here, but social media did in some ways allow us to read each other's thoughts, and we realized that people are filled. Again, not to sound cliche, but people are a bit more angry than we previously thought that they were.
My philosophy is if I have a calm mind and then you have an agitated brain and we meld, you calm down, although I get more agitated. Maybe there would be a balance if enough calm people could be part of a hive mind that it would calm people down.
And I don't know if people were angry before the internet. They've become angrier, at least in my world, since the internet and the whole social media world.
Because Ian's a very mellow, chill guy, but then all of a sudden he read Raymond's Twitter, and then Raymond, who he previously thought was a chill guy, is actually really angry, and now you get angry because Raymond's angry.
I'm tapping my
what
foot.
the crap?
And now you're getting arrested from me because of my thoughts.
Yeah.
And further on, an issue with social media is just the commoditization of anger. Like for these companies to be profitable, they have to show an active user base. They have to show engagement. And so their algorithms are going to be built to serve you stuff that's going to piss you off. So you comment on it, and it's just like an endless feedback loop of angry people yelling at each other.
It's so true. And this is why I want to get to this last story. Originally, we were going to go with Mike Pence, but I don't think that fits in very well. That's the direction I want to keep, pontificating on this idea. From the Wall Street Journal, SpaceX and Google are in talks to launch data centers in orbit. A deal between the two tech titans would give a boost to SpaceX's business ahead of a historic public listing. A launch deal would put the two companies in a partnership as they gear up to compete on orbital data centers, an unproven technology that SpaceX chief executive Elon Musk has said is the next frontier for his rocket company. This is not my domain, but it sounds like it is Ian Crossland's domain. Ian, what do you think about this?
Well, I love it. I've been thinking about using, since about 2011, it seemed like it was actually feasible to store data in DNA or in glass cubes in orbit. And I just keep picturing firing a laser from Earth in hitting a data center and just getting the data. And then I'm like, maybe they're already out there. Like maybe a species 100 million years ago seeded data centers and we just don't know where they are. Because if we hide data centers underground or out in orbit and then humanity suffers a cataclysmic wipeout on the surface, we wouldn't know they were there for another million years potentially. Yeah. Plus, you got to get them off Earth. They're too big. They're loud. I just saw Valuetainment tweeted out how they're buzzing. They're causing people anxiety from the noise they're making. They're sucking up water. They're pumped. So space is. I thought though that I'd read that they were trying to figure out how to cool these things down.
went to the space. So
Elon Musk did a presentation recently. He was talking about, we talked about this before the show, his all-in-one chip fab and manufacturing. And he talked a bit about the orbiting data centers. And it sounds like it's just, they're going to have radiators out in space, just on the dark side of whatever satellite is out there for the cooling to pass everything through. And I agree with you. I think data centers should be moved to space if possible. There's a YouTuber, Ben Jordan, who did a really deep dive into the infrasound that is coming off of these data centers and affecting people that live in the neighborhoods. He's doing a project right now to capture and quantify just how much infrasound is coming out in these neighborhoods, I guess, to organize a class action lawsuit. But it's using up natural resources. It's using up power. In space, you have a solar panel, unlimited free power from the sun, frees up resources on the earth.
This also, I feel like it gives vindication when Donald Trump said, the windmills are giving people cancer or something like that. The windmills, because the sound will destroy people. I mean, the dudes that took shell shock in World War I from all the artillery going off, they came back physically broken in a lot of ways. Yeah, you expose people to this kind of, and you're just calling it infrasound, meaning
infrasound,
it's below human perception. Is that what it is?
Yeah, but you can feel it. And so he showed, he went to some of these neighborhoods right by the data centers, and you could just feel something. He had some special microphones, special audio recording equipment, and he was able to capture what it sounds like. And it's just this very, very low frequency hum that just messes with you. And these people live in it 24/7. But, we have to be able to make funny pictures with AI.
Well,
So
now,
it's worth it.
to play devil's advocate here, I mean, look, one of the objectives for the American right for some time now has been sort of reindustrializing the United States, right? We want to see an increase in manufacturing, an increase in industry, hard industry, and these sorts of things. Now, you have to ask yourself in 2026, what does hard industry look like? I think data centers might be an example of that. Insofar as people were used to furniture shops or textile mills or steel mills moving into their towns prior. Those left and those towns collapsed. Now, is there an argument to be made that, again, data centers are sort of the 21st century, really 2026 sort of analog for, again, hard industry, reindustrialization?
Yeah, because they're going to make chips that are faster and require less electricity. So these giant megalithic buildings are going to start to become obsolete, like ghost towns, like the iron, like Akron, Ohio, after the rubber boom of 1950s. What concerns me, you were talking about, like this is the new industrial revolution, is the AI revolution. They're putting them in orbit. So when it orbits over China, does China have a casus belli to blow it up because it's above their country? Like it's gonna be the reason why now they're gonna make the argument that we have to militarize space to protect our data centers.
It's already been done. We did that demonstration. We shot a faulty satellite down from a boat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. They fired a missile. It hit a spy satellite that was deorbiting on its own already, but they're like, the tank on it has deadly hydrazine in it. We can't let that potentially land intact. So we better shoot a missile at it from a boat. I think that was kind of like a something measuring contest with China to show like we can shoot your stuff down.
It was in orbit at the time?
It was in orbit at the time.
They hit it with a missile?
Hit it with a missile fired from a boat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, so it wasn't even above the United States. It was was it moving towards the United States? Yeah. And that was their argument?
Yeah, and it was already deorbiting.
So what you would have to have these things orbit like not above adversarial nations? Can you change orbital? I don't know enough about the thrust, the rocketry of it all.
Well, I think also a calculation on it with other countries is if you shoot something in space, it creates untold amounts of shrapnel, and it basically traps you on the planet, destroys a bunch of other things that are in orbit, because a little piece of glass or a little piece of metal flying at 17,000 miles an hour is going to cause some major problems. And so I think what's holding them back, it's almost the same principle of, with nuclear weapons, mutually assured destruction. If they shoot a satellite in space and it creates all this debris field, they handicap themselves. Yeah. They can't go back up there. They can't launch their own satellites. They could cause damage to their own satellites. So I think that's what's keeping them in check right now. And potentially in the future, a nation could do some sort of Samson option type thing where they're like, screw it. If I can't do it, no one can. I'm just going to blow this up and let the world handle it. So I think that's what's keeping us safe right now.
It seems like the U.S. has won World War. Whatever that World War was that started in 1914, the U.S. won. Yeah, and now, war. What's that?
The Great War.
Yeah, the Great War has finally come to a close.
It was
the
United best.
States won the Great War, but what's next is like robots. Because I don't think the Chinese or the Russians are going to try and fight this military monolith thing. No one wants to. They don't necessarily like it, but it's the least worst economic system that's ever existed. But I don't know what the next iteration of the Great War is going to look like. I think it's robots. I don't know.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I think, not to quote Alex Jones, I think it's going to be an info war, and I think we're already in it. There's just so many people online trying to subvert each other and subvert ideologies to gain control. And then we have a proxy war between the United States and Russia through the war in Ukraine. I think even Marco Rubio literally said it's a proxy war, which is crazy for Marco Rubio, but respect to him for that. I don't know his angle on it, but we're already in it. We're already seeing the effects of it. And it's an ideological war. It's a war for our minds.
You mentioned COINTELPRO before we went live. That's an FBI organization. What is it? What does it stand for? Counterintelligence program, basically.
Yeah.
Counterintelligence program.
They definitely stopped that in 1971, by the way.
Yeah, there's no way they would have changed the name
Operation
of it.
Mockingbird has totally stopped as well. There's no people on podcasts or on TV that are given talking points by domestic or foreign nations. So definitely not.
Is counterintelligence, that just means that we're going to make a false narrative?
Well, I think that was the name that they gave it. That was like calling it the Patriot Act when it has the opposite effect. Like in their minds, they were doing the right thing. They were surveilling these groups. It was predominantly black groups in the 60s. This is the operation. I don't know if you heard the story about MLK Jr. receiving a letter in the mail being like, hey, we know you're cheating on your wife. You better kill yourself. That was the FBI that wrote that letter and sent it to him. That was part of COINTELPRO. And so these black groups were gaining so much power and so much cohesion working together, they had to stop it. And so they had to subvert it by going after a leader of one of them. They would send letters that purported to be for members of other groups to opposing groups to try and start fights between them, to stop them from working together. They would bring an agent provocateur to protest, to start drama, to start beating people up, to start looting, to misbehave, to essentially weaken that movement. And we saw something similar with the fall of Occupy Wall Street in the early 2010s, which coincidentally rises with the fall of Occupy Wall Street, rises with instances of the words racism and white and black appearing in national newspapers. So this woke culture came directly out of subverting Occupy Wall Street.
So you're not okay. Real quick,
I'm all over the place. Sorry.
You're saying, but by black groups you mean like African American or not? Sorry, Black American groups.
Yeah.
Not
like
black
Black
sites,
Panthers.
not-
yeah.
You know what I mean? Black sites.
Yeah, no,
Type thing.
not a CIA black site.
Okay.
The one that gets me the most that you mentioned of all these like tactics that counterintelligence tactics is where you get two enemies to start fighting each other.
Yeah.
You send one side, like Party A, a message that says, Party B, I'm Party B and I'm coming for you. And then Party B is like, I'm Party A, I'm coming. And then they go to war and you just sit back and watch. That's an ancient tactic.
Yeah.
The Chinese, thousands of years ago. I mean,
Ancient Chinese secret. You're right. Sorry.
I learned it in Romance of the Three Kingdoms by playing it on the Sega Genesis. I don't know what the term was, but it was a very lucrative. I mean, if you get two opponents to exhaust themselves, I think that's what's happening today on the internet with podcasters, and they're making money from it. That's the incentive.
Yep.
They're getting eyeballs.
And the more controversial ones, some of them are being algorithmically boosted to sow that dissent, like to sow that discord between people who to fracture bases. So the conservative base is totally fractured because you have these different warring factions, the podcast wars, as Michael Knowles affectionately refers to it as. It's by design, and it's being encouraged by big tech. And I see why big tech would do it, because it serves two purposes for them. It drives engagement, so they get money from it. That's probably priority number one. But also, a lot of the people running these big tech corporations are liberally minded. They're hardcore liberals. Of course, they're going to want to subvert conservative ideology. They're going to want people to fight amongst themselves, because then they easily can win elections. Because if the conservatives can't come together behind a single candidate, the Democrats always vote blue no matter who. That's one of their taglines. So it's by design, and it's terrible. It's terrible. I don't know where I was going with it, but
I just want to interject one thing about COINTELPRO. There is one vital book from the past, 15 or 20 years that it's essential reading. It's Tom O'Neill's Chaos. And he takes a really deep dive into COINTELPRO, the likely associations between that, the CIA and Charles Manson, and the whole 60s radical movement.
I read that.
Central. You read it?
Oh, yeah.
You have to read it. It's great.
What was the main takeaway from it, without spoiling the book, I guess?
It kind of leads into the same territory that we're talking about right now. Just CIA subversion, and they will use, anything from mind control to MK Ultra. It gets into all that stuff, and it links it to the Manson murders.
Oh yeah, I heard Charles Manson was MK Ultra.
Very very convincing argument that O'Neill makes in that book. Yeah.
Oh man, now I think in scales and patterns, like where else is this playing out? Like this getting your opponents to fight each other. Think about it as like if you're in that system, like what's happening right now? There's
LGBT and Palestinians.
the Israel-Palestine thing.
The Hamas folks, or the Muslims and the LGBTQ community. Like they're not going to get along when it comes down to it. We've already seen them fight in the streets and not get along at all in their protest. They clash.
And what you're even seeing it in the LGBT community itself. The LGBs and the Ts are starting to fight with each other, and that whole thing is another rabbit hole.
Well, one interesting thing that I did notice as a reporter in Southern California was that there were these kind of unlikely bedfellows of alliances among Muslim parents and Christian parents that were pushing back against all of the LGBTQ, gender goblin stuff.
I was going to ask that. Do you think that Islam and Christianity should come together to form like a better Abrahamic union? It goes back to Abraham.
There could be coalitional efforts, but please.
You don't think Abraham was like the guy? Like, why isn't there religion about Abraham? Why he's the guy that
he was just a guy.
I should let you answer the question before I start.
Please.
Sorry.
Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln, right?
No. Abraham, father
Abraham,
the father of
not honest
Judah, the father of Jacob, who was the father of Judah, the tribe of the Jews.
I'm learning about those guys. I don't know.
So the grandfather of Judah, father of Jacob, Israel.
Well, I think generally for Muslims, Christians, Jews, I think God takes more precedent than Abraham. But I reject the notion of an Islamic Christian alliance purely based on what utility do Christians have for Muslims? Because again, like this is the same false premise of a left-right alliances. What does the right offer the left? Because again, the left, Muslims have demonstrated, I'm studying this separately here, but they often work in collaboration. They often are able to impose their will in spite of their host population, or in the left's case, right, I'm just tripping on my words, they're able to impose their will in spite of the right's opposition. So what do they need us for? That's kind of the question.
You mean, what is Islam? How could it benefit from merging with Christianity?
Or even the left, you said, right?
Even the left, or just even if we were to speculate a Islamic Christian alliance, I think like every time this has been tried, at least over the last few years, what typically happens is the Christians will fight to advance Islamic causes, but it's never the other way around.
Like we can give them freedom of speeches and freedom of liberty and property rights, but that's what they can gain from us. But they'll take that and throw it out the door.
Yeah.
The second they get a chance.
We've got the Judeo-Christian alliance. They actually call it Judeo-Christian. So I assume there's some sort of merge that happened. Jesus was a Jewish guy. So.
I think the Judeo-Christian thing was more of like a top-down effort to maybe find common ground, because the conservative movement following the 1960s, there was a lot of Jewish intellectuals. And I'm not saying this is like a pejorative. I'm just saying it's just the reality on the ground. And so we felt like, okay, we have some common understanding and culture war ideas and stuff, so we can unite. But I don't utilize the term Judeo-Christian, because I think actually it was Yoram Hazony said that he believes that Jews, and he's a Jewish gentleman, he said that Jews should be maximally Jewish, Christians should be maximally Christian. And if that's the case, there's actually not going to be much in common, because, okay, where there is overlapping interest, there may be, but again, Christians do have a fundamentally different view of God, like who God is. We believe that Christ is the Son of God. Therefore, it's difficult to truly merge those two in any meaningful way beyond, like, again, some culture war issues where we do find ourselves linking shields.
Is there a way to, like, with Islam? I'm looking at nothing, Raymond. You saw me looking at something. I'm visualizing God. I was trying to visualizing God, what it is. So, like, for the Islamic faith to see the same God, because they're all talking about the monothe, the one true God. Is it not just the same? I know it's defined differently, but that doesn't mean it's not the same thing.
Actually, off camera, I got into this a little bit with Brett Weinstein yesterday, and he said he doesn't use the term Judeo-Christian either. He says that, what did he say? He said that the New Testament is an upgrade, not a sequel, which I thought was a very clever way of putting it. I never thought of it that way, but he's correct. So there are some fundamental differences between the Abrahamic religions that can't really be reconciled.
Yeah, like as a Christian, I would contest that if you're not adhering to the triune God, right? God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, then that's not the God, that is not your creator, that is going to essentially be in communion with you for you to enter heaven. And I think if a Muslim's being honest, or if a Jewish person is being honest, they would make that same contestment. It's just in public, when we're in public spaces debating, it's polite to not like speak about those hard divisions. But especially in regards to Islam, you've seen that, again, they do have some fundamental differences between us and Christians. It's not very useful for either of us to like really seek an alliance, because there's maybe overlapping interests in regards to, I don't know, maybe like LGBT things, maybe abortion. That's really where the like locking shields potential really stops.
I see it sort of as like a necessity to buffer against a greater evil, like the way that the Americans and the Soviets came together to fight the Nazis in World War II. That there is not that like Taoism or Buddhism is the big threat out there, but I feel like there's more technical threats than religion that we could.
I probably have a lot more in common with a secular American than a Pakistani Muslim.
Religion's way more stronger and more powerful than some army over the long scale of things.
But I would also make the contestment, this is going to be unpopular with the audience, but this is just how I feel. I would have a lot more in common with a secular American than like, I don't know, like a Haitian Christian, because it's like, okay, we do have some worldview overlaps, but the reality is that Western civilization structurally is Christian, insofar as how we structure morality, ethics, customs, et cetera, these all come from Christianity. Yeah. And so again, someone that's operating within Western civilization is going to have a slightly closer worldview to me than someone that's from a disparate culture that also does have sort of nominal Christianity.
Yeah. Well, and Raymond, to piggyback off of your point about how powerful religion is, humans inherently want to believe in something higher, something bigger than themselves. We have it's almost like an empty spot in our brains that needs to be filled with something. And for a lot of people, it's God. Yeah. And for atheists, and we see this a lot on the left, it's leftist ideology. That's why they are so angry about certain things. And sometimes you even see it with people who just love Funko Pop dolls and Szechuan sauce from McDonald's, jumping up on a counter screaming, "I want my Szechuan sauce." Mm-hmm. It's like those people that are that extreme, 500 years ago, they would have been like ridiculously, what was it, Christian maxing?
Sure.
Jew maxing?
Yeah.
I'm not Jew maxing. I barely practice. I did my taxes this year. That's the extent of my Judaism practicing. Yeah. And bacon's delicious, by the way. But
that's why you didn't get a bar mitzvah, isn't it? You love bacon.
Yeah, I ran away from Hebrew school when I was 12. It's a long story.
I used to think of like the unification of the faiths as a nice thing that could happen. And now I see it as an inevitability, that it's a survival mechanism against the greater threats. Like at some point, humans are going to realize they're not each other's enemies. There's a greater threat out there.
The problem is Muslims will typically side with secular atheists to combat against Christian interests. Like this is what you see virtually every Western country is Muslim immigrants will typically fold in with whatever pre-existing left-wing party there is. Britain, the Democrat Party in the United States, because again, they view Christians, that Christian core of Western civilization as oppositional to their existence. Because again, if Christians were to truly operate, punching above their weight, firing on all cylinders, there probably wouldn't be much non-Christian migration to these countries. So that's why Muslims do view Christians as adversarial in Western nations, is because they are an impediment to further Islamification of those societies, where secular people are kind of indifferent. They're like, I don't know, you can just do whatever you want.
What's that? Christians have been way too nice on this front. And a couple weeks ago, I called Catholics the devil, just because the NGOs and the Pope, but like they had the Crusades. So I'm learning more. Like that's props. Like I don't know if any Christian community besides like the Catholics of Rome would do the Crusades of even back in the day, because they're just such nice, good human beings.
Raymond, I have such plans. Just wait.
Some of the Crusades was Christian on Christian. They'd just like land grab. The Pope would be like, the French, the Cathars it's a heresy. Everyone go take their land if you want. And all these French dukes would go just take pieces of.
Well, it's when the Crusades got derailed because they were like, look, we've done a bang up job here in the Holy Land. we're in the neighborhood. We should go take back Constantinople. And that's how it began to unravel. But it was a worthy goal. But with that, I think we need to head to Rumble Rants and Super Chats. We got quite a bit to work through here. Carter has been plucking out the finest Rumble Rants and Super Chats for us. Right. So what do we got here, Carter? If you can just kind of highlight for me what you think I should be reading, because I'm a Calvinist, so I don't believe I have free will. And so I need Carter to make my decisions for me.
I think this one is...
I like this.
Or about last night.
Okay. All right. We'll read this from Marusha Dank 316. I think Brett's point, we're not talking about Brett Dasovic, we're talking about Brett Weinstein here. I think Brett's point about maximizing freedom is like using the Laffer curve to maximize revenue. Too much or too little doesn't get you there. I think it's a fair assessment.
Sure.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Yeah. Truth maxing.
South Carolina from Don't Be Goy. For $2, he's thrown in a super chat here. South Carolina is like Indians. Oh, no, rather. South Carolina is like Indiana. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
All right.
They did elect one, Nikki Haley, so I don't know if that would flush out. South Carolina is like Indiana. It's a rhino state. Yeah, I know. This is South Carolina. They produce consistently some of the worst senators in the GOP caucus, unfortunately.
Graham has been there for ever now?
For like literally, yeah, like honestly, it's been...
Since I was born, I think.
As long as I've been politically conscious.
Yeah, him and his ladybugs.
Cody Johnson, sorry. Cody Johnson, 9781 said, met Phil last night in St. Louis.
Oh, nice.
All right.
Nice.
Wow.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Shout out to the great Phil Labonte. He is tearing it up right now.
So that is where he is right now.
A lot of us
were all
went-
wondering earlier.
Yeah, he's on
tracker.
tour. He's busy. A few of us here at Timcast went and saw him in Baltimore. I had a little crowd surfing incident.
Oh, you did.
I heard.
It was fantastic.
It was a lot of fun. You can go. I put it on my Instagram. If you want to go to my Instagram, you can see me crowd
Nice.
surfing.
Nice.
If you're watching, I recommend if you got a chance to watch All That Remains, man. It's rocking.
I'm sorry, I just stepped in front of you, man.
Okay.
I blocked your camera
I'm
shot.
so mad about that, Ian. You're fired.
Did you catch that, Carter? I didn't
Yeah,
see
well,
the
I tried to trickle around it.
Yeah.
With I tried to create an
absolute-
illusion that you'd never left the room, but it didn't really work
Thanks,
very
dude.
well.
Shout out to Phil Labonte. I love the man. Phil, I'm in your seat right now. Have a killer tour, brother. Just crush it, dude. I saw him. Did you guys see that one? I retweeted it of him screaming. Like, the dude is built like not a lot of people on earth can do that. That's pretty wild. That guy's awesome.
Mechanical Mercenary for $20 here on Rumble said SPLC commercial on TV right now, fundraising on the redistricting. Funding racism one donation at a time. I think that's absolutely true. It's kind of actually funny. There are a lot of these NGOs that are quite thrilled about how excellent the Republicans have been behaving over the last few weeks because it is a huge fundraising opportunity for them. Yeah. It is quite something to see there. Pop Raider. Yeah. ICE being poorly trained. This, I think, directed at you. ICE being poorly trained is a Democrat talking point. Fast-tracked agents come from those with previous experience in law enforcement.
Not all of them. Otherwise, we wouldn't have American citizens being killed.
Are
I
you
understand that they were, being resistant, but these guys are not well trained, and not all of them, obviously. But I mean, there's been very well-known incidents that indicate that perhaps they're not getting the level of training that they need to be able to do the job that they're tasked to do.
Are you referring to like the Renee Good?
Yes. Yeah.
Do we know what kind of training they actually have? Because I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, they have like kind of a because they were hired so quickly. There is a pre-existing ICE training regiment, but again, when you're effectively fast-tracking agents here, which is what they need because they're trying to carry out a mass deportation agenda, they're banking quite a bit on their previous law enforcement expertise. The Renee Good, I mean, look, that was something that we litigated quite extensively on Timcast. We had a few people that were contesting that this was unjust. I think the stalemate that I think a lot of people could arrive at was, again, if you're sort of impeding on a federal, investigation, what happens to you is sort of a responsibility of you. And so I think that was kind of the assessment people kind of came to a conclusion.
Chris, do you think, I'm going to go on the next chat though, do you think that we'd be better off with the robot police in these situations?
I've seen RoboCop way too many times to think that that's a good option. But just to clarify, I'm not a Democrat. I don't care about the talking points. I'm an anarchist. So if I'm critiquing them from any angle, it's from an anarcho-Christian perspective.
Yeah, well, I respect that you're consistent on that. So this is from Hitman Zarelli. He says, for $10, modern Europe, modern UK is not anywhere near similar. They say constantly, we have no food, we have no culture. For 2 weeks, Japan showed more respect than the UK has ever shown. Japan is a stronger ally. I agree with that. I think Japan has been a very loyal ally of the United States. which says a lot. And, it's as an aside, you see a lot of these countries and they cite European colonialism is really why we've been held back. Well, we literally nuked Japan and decimated their society. And in 70 years, they've emerged to be the third largest economy. I think they just got passed by India, but for all intents and purposes, third largest economy.
And a unified, respectable culture. Sorry.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's
I trust society.
I trust society, very homogenous, proud to be Japanese. They've elected sort of pro-Japanese national identity groups. It's quite something to see, and they've been a very excellent ally.
Minus Hirohito's militant empire. Was that the guy? Was he wasn't the emperor, Hirohito. He was just the leader of their military during
No, he
World
was
War
the
II.
emperor.
Was he also the emperor?
Yep.
Minus that little 40-year debacle, the Japanese have been so cool. I just kind of overlook that weird period of Japanese imperialism between 1890 and 1940 but I guess they've always been kind of warlike, with the shogunate in the 14 and 1500s,
even prior
Sengoku Jidai,
yeah,
Oda Nobunaga, Tokugawa.
Way after the 1920s, 30s, 40s.
What's that?
You just said the 1400s?
Well, back in the 14 and 1500s, when the Sengoku Jidai was going on, and it was like this, it was like the Japanese Civil
they
War
were
that went on for
effectively a shogunate well into the 19th century until we opened up their economy forcibly.
And it's been very romanticized in American culture. Samurai, for instance, ninja,
Yeah, which actually was a thing for a quite long. By the time the 19th century rolled around, it was a little bit of a different structure. It resembled more something we saw in World War II. But yeah, they had about 50 years of free trade, and they were like, enough of this. We're electing a fascist.
But on that point of Japan, they're able to maintain their trains, they're able to maintain their buildings. Whereas the people who got colonized in certain countries are unable to maintain anything.
Yeah.
They don't know how to do trains. They don't know how to do bridges. So at least there's people who can't function in the world, and there are people who actually can function in the world.
Yeah. Do you know what they used before candles in Zimbabwe to light their houses?
It was probably some fat of some sort.
It was light bulbs.
What?
It was light bulbs.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Do you know how people? Do you know how people in Tanzania got around before the donkey?
Carts.
It was cars, actually. Yeah, it was cars and trains. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Nikki Coco here says, this is on Rumble. This is a Rumble rant.
Oh, Nikki.
Nikki here says, I grew up in New Jersey in the same town as the Hasidic community. You have no clue how deep it goes, how coercive the community is, and what they've done to Lakewood and the surrounding towns and areas. Yeah, Lakewood is a pretty egregious case because in this instance, originally the sort of ultra-Orthodox communities that we're talking about, the Hasidics for those, that's kind of the term that's utilized. People call it Haredim. That's what they call them in Israel. Anyway, they sort of consolidated in Brooklyn initially, in New York City. And then now as Brooklyn becomes very difficult for them to live in, they have started moving to surrounding suburbs. And Curious Joel was the one that Tyler Oliveira investigated. Lakewood, New Jersey is another example of where they basically come in, they move in, vote out everyone, and impose their will at the local level.
I want to say about the Hasidic community, without being disrespectful, because I don't want us to talk about the community as a monolith, that it's kind of like a girl that's been through some horrible trauma in her life, and you're like, I'm gonna fix her. I feel like that about the Hasids. In New York, I'd walk around, I'd look in your eyes, and I would see you, and I'd be like, yeah, it's cool. It's cool beyond whatever you're doing with your whatever your thing is.
I think you should partner with Tyler Oliveira and go on a rescue mission and say, guys, come on.
Yeah, he just got back from Israel.
Yeah, so, a little quicker than
sign me up, baby.
An acquaintance of mine wrote a book called Unorthodox about her experience breaking out of the Hasidic community. Very enlightening read. She shares quite a story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because that's kind of the false equivalence a lot of people are drawing here is well, you're not like with the Amish. I'm like, okay, there's a variety of reasons why the Amish are different. For one, people don't have open memoirs about how traumatic, consistently traumatic the Amish community treated their people. You actually have a thing in the Amish community. I don't know what it's called specifically, but they basically go out into the world.
Rumspringa.
Yeah, what's it called?
That's what it's Rumspringa.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah. So in the Amish community, they go out for 2 years and participate in the world, and they're like, let's try this on for size. And I believe the majority of people end up returning to the Amish community because they're like, it seems like a bit healthier. So Hasidic community, I don't know if that's the case.
So while not treating them like a monolith, the reviews are not good.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
fair to say.
It's true.
That's the feeling I got when I would see them in New York with eye contact. It was like they were forced to look away. It was very strange. It was weird.
Yeah, I just want everyone to assimilate. I think that's my. I'm consistent across. So Somalis, Yemenis, Hasidics, anyone. Just assimilate. That's all we're asking.
What do you do this? Is this how we do it?
Yeah.
I'm new
Modern
here.
world.
Slam poetry.
Because people were like, "Why are you picking on him?" I'm like, "You were like cheering me on when I was slamming Somalis and slamming Yemenis." And then as soon as I touched the group that like people, maybe some of my my cheerleaders had a bit more affinity towards, all of a sudden I'm like this evil anti-Semite. So I have like these people calling me anti-Semites, and then I have a whole other segment of viewers that are like, "You're a Zionist shill," and I'm like, "What? I'm just advocating for a pro-America policy here."
Pick a team and stick to the talking points, Tate. Why can't you just do that?
I know.
Just being a patriot, bro.
And I'm not even trying to be nuanced either. Like, I think it's like gay to be nuanced. I'm like, I am taking hardline positions here. It's just like unbelievable. So Mythos671 says, anybody see Nick Shirley's videos documenting his near arrest and flight from Cuba? He almost got arrested by Cuba's intelligence service.
No, but I saw that he did it.
According to Candace Owens, it's all fake. I don't know if Mark has any.
I don't.
I said that.
You want me to speak for? I can't. She's
No,
a great
of
PR
course I
guy,
know.
though.
Of course
you
I
could
know.
call him.
Busting balls, my friend.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen that. I've seen tweets about it, but I mean, I'm a fan of Nick Shirley's work.
Yeah,
I think
he
he's
does
done
excellent.
some extraordinary things. I kind of see her perspective on it. You know,
I don't.
that an outsider wouldn't be so really accepted, but
Yeah.
Oh, so he posted
I'm
videos
sorry.
to be like, "Hey, I wasn't totally accepted. I actually had trouble." Is that what that video was that he posted?
Well, and the thing is, like, okay, I've met Nick Shirley before. I've talked to him, and I mean this as a compliment. Actually, is that he's a very like straightforward guy. So I mean, you're gonna have to take my anecdote for evidence here, but like the idea that he's like some sort of clandestine operator. He doesn't have a good enough poker face.
He's like a surfer dude type mentality. Like, hey, what's going on? Let's just talk.
Yeah, he's just like,
unless he's breaking points. So I don't know.
yeah, he's just like a guy.
Unless he's the most subversive genius.
Oh,
Subversive, just manipulative. It's Nick, though. I mean, it's like he's like, I want to help.
Yeah, it's just like when you talk to him, he'll like literally just tell you what he's up to.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, all right. Anyway, we can hammer
exactly like an agent would.
on that. Yeah, I know, right?
Damn, he's good.
He's operating on behalf of the American people. This guy's seriously nefarious here. Okay, Swanson, 1998 says, as a native Californian who fled to Tennessee, it's a night and day difference. Nice. People go vote. I don't care if it's for a rhino. I'd rather deal with that than somebody who wants to jail me because I voted Trump.
I like it.
Bold statement here, and it's very interesting. It's a conversation a lot of people are having. Disgruntled vet says, "Oh, I just burped into the microphone.
Nice job, dude.
All Americans should listen to John Wayne's album America, Why I Love Her, about hyphen American. He explains it perfectly. Second track, The Hyphen. Is anybody familiar with it?
No.
John Wayne, like the old guy.
Gacy?
No, there's there's a guy that was Junior.
Yeah, I mean, I know Theodore Roosevelt's stance on the
I'm gonna look at what's
American.
I'm assuming this is a musician.
John Wayne, like the cowboy? I mean, I'm sure
That's what I'm saying. Like, does he have like
at least a country song?
an album?
I'm looking it up.
Name the song, please, again, real quick.
Said America,
the
Why
hyphen.
I Love
It's
Her.
the second track off of America, Why I Love Her.
I kind of miss the days when we could just play copyrighted music
Oh, yeah,
at
that's
any
totally
time,
right. We
anywhere.
can't do that.
Before like ad revenue was a thing in like 2007, you could just play any song at any time on YouTube. It was crazy.
Real quick, it's a quote by John Wayne. Real quick, the old dude. The elder gentleman. The hyphenated American is ridiculous, but that's what we have to put up with. I think that any person that's in the United States is better off here than they would be where they came from.
Agreed. I totally, and that's Theodore Roosevelt.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He's like, look, we don't have room for hyphenated Americans. You're either in or you're out. One foot in, one foot out.
Basically.
It's not acceptable. I remember a few days ago, I was like on Twitter and I'd said, I don't even remember what my point was, but I was like contesting some point, and then a guy replied to me and he was like, who are you to say, who's American, who's not? Like, you're being cruel. And then I looked in his bio and it said Cuban American. And I'm like,
Right.
hello, like, you're not even all in. Like, what are we even talking about here? So
I like the way you say that. I've been all in.
yeah, like, okay, it's like if you immigrate here, that's great. We need to see total dedication in the United States. That's sorry, it's just it is what it is. Disagree. Take it up with Theodore Roosevelt. I'm sorry, it is what it is. Take it up with Teddy.
If you could become a citizen of Earth and give up your American citizenship, would you?
Probably not.
Definitely not.
Like to represent Earth to Mars?
No,
To the
America.
solar
I
system?
mean, the Americans are going to be the ones representing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be an ambassador to Mars. I'm happy to do that.
We could turn the Earth into the United States of Earth, and it could all be like self-governance.
Well, that's a lot.
I feel like that's where we're
I
headed.
think that might be in the national security strategy to eventually just take all of Earth.
Okay.
They'll do it willingly when they realize how awesome it is to live free.
I'll read one more here from Silas 5G. Trump held a bee.
What?
He did hold a bee. Do you guys remember when King Charles was visiting and the bee was agitating them and then he picked it up and showed him?
No, I
Oh,
don't.
really?
About that story.
Yo, I got stung by a wasp. Did I tell you guys this?
This story is nuts. You told me.
I was driving with all my windows down about 20 miles an hour, and this wasp came in and hit me in the neck. I was like, I think that was a bee. And then I was like, maybe it was a flower. And then it stung me. I was like, and I kept driving. And I was like, if I just relax, it'll stop. And then it went deeper. I was like, So I pulled off, and the guy fell on the ground. I like flicked it, and he fell down. And you know, every impulse in my body is like crush and destroy, pain, But I felt so bad for the guy because he didn't mean, he was terrified. This is actually a metaphor for leftists. I think I might have mentioned this one day to you too. It's like, it stung me because it was afraid, not because it was malicious. And so I didn't destroy it. I didn't kill it. It didn't want to hurt me. It just, that was the situation at the moment. So I helped him become free and helped him. And he got away, as far as I know.
That's right.
He actually got detained by ICE shortly after.
So true. Well, with that, we got to wind this show down. We will be heading to our after show portion. It'll be on Rumble, so make sure you're a Rumble Premium member so you can join us for the after show. The Discord will be calling in, so make sure you join the Discord so you can call in and ask this wonderful panel and our guests any question that comes to mind. We will take literally any question. There's no such thing as a stupid question in the Timcast Discord. So with that, Mark, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on X at Mark J. Herman. It's also same for my YouTube channel at Mark J. Herman. I do a weekday podcast called Mark Explained. It's live 2 p.m. Central. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I'm obviously not comfortable on camera, so it's fun to watch.
Hey, thank you very much for coming on. I think
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is incredible. Really great to meet you guys. Been a fan for a long time, especially Ian.
Okay.
I appreciate
I'm
it.
Ian. Speaking to me, I'm Ian. I'm Ian Crossland. Get familiar, because I'm gonna be around for a long time.
Let's just switch it up. All right, Ian, you give your outro.
Hit it.
Where's the pyro? Sorry.
Follow me at Ian Crossland. Also, Graphene.movie is coming out pretty soon. I'm gonna put the pedal to the metal on that one. So go to Graphene.movie and sign up for the mailing list so you can get notified when this documentary is going live. Man, got a lot of good things in the pipe. We're gonna be recording music pretty soon, Carter and I.
That's true. We are. We got 2 songs in the pipe.
Nice.
Or is it the pike?
I think the
It's in the pipe.
I imagine
One of those things, but
the
yeah,
pipeline.
one of
Carter,
them.
give your outro.
My outro, I mean, that's pretty much it. I keep it conversational. You can follow me at Carter Banks everywhere and at Carter Banks Official everywhere else. If you want to hear some music that me and Ian are going to record and some that I'm going to put out, you can find that at Trash House Records YouTube channel. But yeah, let's.
Yeah.
Who do we go to
Raymond,
next?
call in the
Raymond.
air. Call in the air.
Heads.
Ooh. Chris, give us your outro.
Go read my Substack, chriscarr.substack.com. That's Carr with a K, K-A-R-R, where I write about movies and interesting people.
And I am Raymond G. Stanley Jr. I will suggest you sign up for the Discord when you get a chance. I will suggest you sign up for Timcast IRL on the YouTube as well. That way you can get little beanies in your chat. And I will suggest you follow me, Raymond G. Stanley, on X and in the world. Let's go.
I love it. And you can follow me on X and Instagram at RealTateBrown. Come give me a follow. Come hang out. And we'll see you guys here shortly for the Discord after show. See you there.